And welcome back into the Weather Channel's continuing live coverage here of not one, but two tropical storm threats. We've got Hurricane Marco expected to make landfall somewhere in Louisiana come tomorrow, and then Laura right after that. What are we looking like for impacts here in New Orleans and across southern Louisiana? We're going to answer that and much more coming up. Mark?
The first U.S. impacts from Laura will be felt right here in the Florida Keys. I'm meteorologist Mike Seidel in Key West, and coming up, we'll time it out for you and let you know what to expect here on Monday.
And we are live around the clock with you, tracking this rare tropical threat. Two different tropical systems taking aim at the Gulf Coast with landfalls within the next 72 hours from now. And again, that's landfalls with an S. How often do we get to say something like that? I'm Storm Specialist Mark Elliott. There is a lot to walk you through tonight. We have Marco, we have Laura, both headed to the Gulf Coast right now, so we are tracking it all. And that includes meteorologist Julie Martin in the lab tonight. We have our hurricane expert, Dr. Rick Knabb, with me here in the studio, and meteorologist Chris Bruin kicking things off live in New Orleans. City preparing for these tropical systems to approach. Chris, beautiful sunset behind you. It's kind of the proverbial calm before the storm, if you will.
Yeah, tropical systems always, the day before they, move in, it always seems to make the most amazing sunsets. And tonight's in New Orleans was certainly no exception. It was incredible, of course, calm night. And it's August in Louisiana, and it feels comfortable. I actually haven't even been sweating. And I'm not making that up. So a welcome breeze pretty much all day. So it was great weather to prepare and finish those preparations. But, as we look at the evening sky, the lights dawning, you're running out of time to prepare. And it's not just preparing for Marco. Yes, we know Marco will likely not be the stronger of the two. Don't underestimate the power of a strong tropical storm weak hurricane, because it's still going to provide some, life-threatening impacts in some cases, especially here in a low-lying state like Louisiana. We're surrounded by water in so many areas, and a lot of towns are below sea level or are surrounded by levees. So that's a big factor. But it's not just Marco, it's Laura. And we will see impacts, Mark, afterwards. And the problem is Laura may be much stronger. But you have to prepare now for really both storms, because we're not really going to have a lot of window of opportunity. Granted, we could even have flooding after Marco comes through, and there could be road closures. So trying to get out before Laura could be all the more difficult if you don't take those preparations in place now.
Absolutely. So that's a whole other ball game when you're preparing for two storms with barely a window in between them. That's Chris Bruin in New Orleans, and we'll continue to check back in with Chris throughout the evening. Now, let's go through one storm at a time, because Hurricane Marco is basically knocking on the doorstep. 75-mile-per-hour winds, Category 1 hurricane, and here's that forecast path to approach southeast Louisiana, and then at some point do a turn to the west. That is still a little bit in question. Amazing that we're this close. Right? It's sometime tomorrow. Will we get landfall and then the westward turn, or does that westward turn start to happen first? Now, I think no matter what, we're going to get tropical storm force winds to start to approach the coastline, and so tropical storm warnings as well as a few tropical storm watches, Mobile, back towards Bogalusa and Macomb. But there are also hurricane watches and warnings for the rest of southeast Louisiana. That's going to be the closest approach for Marco. Now, the kind of the limiting factor that we've been talking about with Marco has been the shear. You see the bright colors on the map here, the blues, the purples, high amounts of wind shear tearing apart our system. But the very small Marco, that little blow up with thunderstorms at the very bottom of your screen, has been able to shrug off this enough that we got to hurricane status. I think that's probably its peak organization, considering how close it is to the upper level trough and that shear. Also, we're seeing winds in some of these buoys anywhere from 20 to 35 miles per hour or so. But we're basically in between those buoys right now, and that's why we have the hurricane hunters. Hurricane hunters are flying into this storm right now. They've done one pass through that center, still a little bit lopsided, a little bit tilted over, now going up that east side, going south to north, and wouldn't really expect to see much wind all the way over there from a small storm system, but then they'll turn back through as they go through that Alpha X pattern. Now, this data has been so valuable. It goes right into these hurricane models, and the models have been consistent, saying, yeah, we're going to kind of hover near this hurricane force, and then eventually the combination of land interaction and being close to that trough is going to start to lower the wind threat. That's not the only threat, though. We've already seen the rainfall and a large swath of tropical moisture across Florida. A couple of those marine alerts there off the Florida panhandle. Those continue right now. So it's going to be a rainy event. There will be at least some wind. Tropical storm force winds in yellow, a small footprint of hurricane force winds that are going to come right up to the coastline. And then many of you might not even see sustained winds of tropical storm force. But with rain and tropical storm gusts, think about chance for flooding, think about the chance for trees down, power lines. Here's your max wind potential across much of southern Louisiana, at least 40 miles per hour. Some of you could get into a corridor of 60. And here's another look at that wind forecast, some timing for you with the winds approaching Monday morning, picking up through the late afternoon and evening. And then as that center goes westbound, right, starts to go west across the Gulf, then those winds will go with it across southern Louisiana. But I mentioned the rainfall coming in. Here's a look at the European model. It's going to be a narrow zone from Marco that sees the intense rains, the 3 to 5, maybe 5 to 8 inches of rain. This is as seen by the European model. The USGFS model, also similar. There's some small scale differences, but a similar feel that many of you will see about an inch of rain right near that coastline and near southeast Louisiana. You get to some higher totals, and that also comes with a chance for severe weather, including well inland. There will be a tornado threat through the day tomorrow, as is often the case with landfalling tropical systems. But this is also a very surge-prone part of the world. I want to go to our hurricane expert, Dr. Nab, who's here to look at that. A shallow shelf, it's a small hurricane, but a hurricane nonetheless, so a water rise looks more and more likely.
Yeah, Mark, you don't have to have a major hurricane or even a really well put together Cat 1 or 2 to have a significant storm surge risk in the northern Gulf Coast. The shallowness of the water, the shape of the coastline, and with a system that's already got a pressure of 991 millibars, even though it's going to be struggling against wind shear and probably not getting any stronger, it might even be weakening over the next day or so. I think it's already too late to avoid some storm surge. Don't be fooled by the fact that the system doesn't look all that impressive. With the pressure that low, we've already got the flow coming into that kind of catcher's mitt shape of the coastline where Mississippi and Alabama come together. We still have storm surge watches and warnings in effect. The warnings are outside metropolitan New Orleans, and so is the watch, by the way. It's for Lake Pontchartrain, but Metro New Orleans not in that. But you do have these very vulnerable areas of the immediate coastline of Mississippi and Louisiana, and the watch goes all the way to the Mississippi-Alabama border, and we also have the watch out here. Remember, this track is going to bend to the left, so we could have some onshore flow. And again, storm surge warnings and watches are for about 3 feet of saltwater flooding above normally dry ground. The expectation of that in the warning, the possibility in the watch. But look how high the water could get if it holds on to its intensity. We could catch a break here if it weakens faster than forecast or stays farther offshore. That would all be good for lessening the impacts from water. Now, we still have some modest water rises on the increase. We're coming out of low tide. We'll hit high tide tomorrow morning, and then it becomes a balance between when do you have a combination of high astronomical tide and when do you have the strongest onshore push. There could be some onshore push tomorrow morning at high tide at Shell Beach, for example, and that's when you could maximize the storm surge. But it's all going to be relative to the onshore push maximizing at the time of high tide. But could we catch a break in lessening that onshore push? If the trends in the models that have been showing a weaker system bending to the left sooner and maybe keeping a lot of the system offshore, lessening the onshore push, then maybe we don't realize the 4, 5, and 6 foot storm surge values, but it's still a possibility. But it will be weakening quickly as it moves along the coast there. And a lot of the tracks in the European model ensembles keep it a fair distance offshore. So, Julie, it's at least conceivable that we could catch a significant break here with regard to storm surge by having the system be weaker and farther offshore than those storm surge forecasts are based upon. But for the moment, got to hold on to those possibilities of life-threatening storm surge because enough of the models are close enough to the coastline.
And a lot of those areas in Louisiana in particular already have been evacuated. We are looking at the timing a little bit more closely now here for you. Does look like we will begin to see some of those effects certainly coming in by the time we get into tomorrow. So in here into southern Louisiana, certainly places like Grand Isle where they've already evacuated. And really it will depend, as Dr. Knabb mentioned, just how much of a westerly component we see with the storm itself. However, it does look like regardless, tropical storm force winds are going to be in play. Hopefully we'll catch a break when it comes to the storm surge and that water rise. Right now seeing some of the very, very early outer bands coming on in here to the Florida Panhandle. A couple of marine warnings outlined here in orange. A number of water spouts being reported there in that particular area. But certainly from Destin back down to Pensacola, looking at least some light to moderate rain starting to work its way in and some messy weather there right along that I-10 corridor with plenty more of that to come. So looking at the timing here for you in Pensacola, does look like we will be looking at some of those gusts maybe reaching 15-20 miles an hour or so by Monday afternoon into the evening hours. 30-mile-per-hour gusts perhaps coming in by Tuesday into Wednesday. Looking at maybe as much as 2 to 3 inches of rainfall. Obviously some higher localized totals are certainly still possible. And we look at it, some of these low-lying areas, again, right along the Gulf here, notorious for, being big problem areas when it comes to storm surge and also flooding. We're talking about maybe as much as 4 inches here in and around Pensacola, Mobile Bay. So not looking like the greatest forecast. And then we have the next storm, Laura, lurking in the wings right behind it. But we want to get back out now. We're talking about mandatory evacuations, right? In fact, for several southern Louisiana parishes. Marco strengthening and Laura drawing closer as well. Chris Bruin as in New Orleans. And now this city, Chris, really has to brace for these back-to-back hits.
Yeah, and that's the difficult part. We haven't really been faced with a situation like this in this generation. And really, you have to go a long time. And we've never had two cones kind of overlap within a few days of each other. So it really is a unique situation and something that it's going to be kind of learned as we haven't really seen this type of event unfold, especially here in the Gulf of Mexico. Certainly no stranger to tropical systems, so you know how to prepare, but to do so for 2 storms, that's difficult. Here in New Orleans, they're as prepared can be, right? A lot of closures tomorrow, including some schools, as well as City Hall and city municipal offices. And there's even been evacuations ordered, not for New Orleans proper, but for areas closer to the coast. You can see the steady stream of cars coming out of Grand Isle, Louisiana earlier today. That went into effect this morning. They are under a mandatory evacuation, as well as Plaquemines Parish, the entire East Bank and parts of the West Bank under that evacuation order as well. And we even have voluntary evacuations for parts of Jefferson Parish. So if you know you live in a spot that floods and you're under one of these voluntary evacuations, that might be a cue to be like, okay, if I've got friends or family in a different part of town that's a little bit more safe, that might be wise. You don't have to go all the way up to Mississippi and those type of things, especially for a storm like Marco, but you do want to get out of those threat zones. And Dr. Knabb, I know people are looking at the latest forecast track as of the 5 p.m. advisory and seeing that New Orleans isn't in the cone for either of these. I'm fearful that may catch some people off guard, especially with how nice the weather's been tonight. They're like, how in the world are we getting all this bad weather tomorrow? And then Laura, a lot of the models still have, a trend towards, New Orleans, certainly being on the east side of the system. We're going to have impacts regardless on where the center necessarily takes effect. And we're trying to get the word out that we may have 2 storms in 1 week in some of these same areas.
Yeah, and a lot of things could change with Laura between now and when it comes ashore in the northern Gulf. So Houston, you're not off the hook. New Orleans, you're not off the hook, and a lot of you in between. So let's take a look at the storm right now, centered over southeastern Cuba. It's centered over land or right near that southern coast. So it's still tangling with that landmass with the mountains of Cuba, and that will probably keep the intensity down. So there's tropical storm warnings and tropical storm watch for the southern Florida Keys. No hurricane watches or warnings are up yet. But once it gets past Cuba, the environment looks to be quite different than what Marco is going to be experiencing. And you already can tell this one has a different look than Marco does. Laura has this larger envelope, and even though it has some land interaction, it has a much different environment. Look at that upper level high pressure really dominating, whereas with Marco, you've got upper level low pressure and southwesterly shear that's going to keep its intensity down. Now let's watch it in the models. Here's the colors of the low level spin of Marco, and here is Laura. And here is our big subtropical high over the West Atlantic that's going to bring Laura near or over the southern coast of Cuba. The more time it spends over water, south of Cuba, the stronger it could get even before this time. But when we get into Monday, it's going to start rounding that ridge as it gets into the Gulf of Mexico. And look at these traveling white lines, how you make a big upper level high pressure. That is weak wind shear over the Gulf of Mexico. This could lead to not just intensification, but possibly rapid intensification somewhere along the line. And if it goes as far east as the Euro says, it will have less time. But if it goes farther west, as some of the European model tracks suggest, then it could have more time over water to strengthen even more. So look at how large of an area New Orleans to Houston, even beyond those two cities, could experience a strong Cat 1 or 2 hurricane, possibly even a major hurricane. So yes, we do have this rare dual threat, but I think Laura is going to be a different beast than is Marco. Stay with us.
Max. No. Max! Max! Max!
Dogs don't know what's good for them. Luckily, you do. Greenie's Dental Treats.
Introducing new Life Cuisine for your lifestyle. High protein, meatless, gluten-free, or low-carb lifestyle. Power up your day with new Life Cuisine. Delicious your way.
Whether holding down the fort or bouncing back to school, childhood is always in session. So keep feeding us right with Sun-Made snacks. Just like when you were a kid. Delicious, made with whole fruit. Sun-Made.
Who are you? I'm your daydream. Come.
What a day for a daydream.
What a day for a daydream. You're never too far from the life Artois.
I'm a performer. Always have been and always will be. Never letting anything get in my way. Not the doubts, distractions, or voice in my head. And certainly not arthritis. New Voltaren provides powerful arthritis pain relief to help me keep moving. And it can help you too. Feel the joy of movement with Voltaren.
Hey, I didn't order any pizza.
Jake from State Farm. After you saved me so much dough on insurance with that Parker promo, I devised a promo for you.
Here's the deal, Parker. State Farm offers everyone surprisingly great rates.
Yeah, right. Pepperoni pockets, an atomic brownie, cuckoo crusty.
There's no promo, it's just great rates.
And a side of ranch. You're the man.
When you want the real deal, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Oh, look at you.
Don't you worry about paying for all that data?
Oh, no, I'm on Consumer Cellular.
Oh, I've got a great plan with Consumer Cellular, too. I'm always talking to my family, and I send 3 pictures of Cece every day, 1 for each grandchild.
My kids haven't even seen a picture of Bruno.
Get talk, text, and data as low as $20 a month with Consumer Cellular. Ranked #1 in customer service by J.D. Power. See how much you can save at consumercellular.com or find us at Target.
Did you help build New York or New Jersey? Did you work in the building trades or military or do industrial or automotive work where you were exposed to asbestos that led to a mesothelioma or lung cancer diagnosis? If so, you are a real hero. And Whiteson Luxembourg wants to speak with you and help achieve justice and compensation.
Call 1-888-411-LAWS. That's 1-888-411-LAWS.
Guys come in all shapes and sizes. There is no normal for everyone, but there is a normal for you. If, like thousands of other guys, you find that your normal isn't so normal anymore, it could be an addressable medical condition called Peyronie's disease, or PD. A curve with a bump that bothers you isn't normal and should be checked out by a urologist, because you don't have to accept this as your new normal. Find a urologist at learnaboutpd.com.
unbelievable. This is real.
When your cameras roll, our experts react.
Jaw-dropping.
Weather Gone Viral premieres next Sunday at 9 here on the Weather Channel.
Currently in our area, 79 degrees under mostly cloudy skies. Tonight, partly cloudy skies, low 76. Winds south-southwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Monday, partly cloudy early, scattered thunderstorms developing in the afternoon. High 91, chance of rain 50%. Monday night, partly cloudy, low 77. Winds west-southwest at 10 to 15 miles per hour. Here's our 7-day outlook.
All right, night is upon us here in New Orleans, Louisiana, on what's going to be a busy week ahead. And again, this is not a sprint, it's a marathon. We've got to pace ourselves and we've got to prepare accordingly. So hopefully you've stocked up not just for Marco's effects that begin tomorrow here in New Orleans and across Louisiana, but for Laura's impacts later in the week, because we've kind of got a double whammy. Now, there's still a lot of uncertainty in exactly where Laura is going to end up and the strength, but note that Laura has the potential to be a monster if that all pans out. So there's a lot of things we're monitoring here. Of course, mandatory evacuations for some of the parishes closest to the coast where we could have water rise and they don't want anybody to be trapped. And then another monster of a storm comes by and really puts people in a predicament. So as far as impacts go, let's talk about what we're expecting here in the greater New Orleans area. From the North Shore Lake Pontchartrain, we know how easily the lakeshore floods. That will be a problem, especially depending upon the wind direction and as winds shift. Remember, too, if the center of the storm even doesn't necessarily pass right over New Orleans and passes farther off to our west, we're still going to be on the more active side, the side where we've got to watch for that onshore flow. That's going to push a lot of water into some of those low-lying spots. That's why the storm surge warning, you probably got that notification on your phone if you were anywhere in the north central Gulf Coast. So be mindful of that. And then the heavy rain threat and even the risk for tornadoes. Power outages, of course, are going to be a factor, and this is all going to expand. I would say late morning is when some of the worst of the squalls start to push in, and then throughout the rest of the day, it's going to be a busy day. And we could be seeing thousands without power, dependent upon how strong the winds are. But I think the flash flood potential, Julie, is really going to be the biggest issue, at least in New Orleans, because in July alone, we had over 15 inches of rain. It was our wettest July on record, so the area has seen a lot of rainfall, and now we're going to throw another half foot or more on top of already saturated grounds.
Yeah, those levees are going to be working hard there in New Orleans. Chris, thank you so much. We're going to check back with you throughout the show, of course. So we're already, though, getting some video in showing some of the impacts from Laura pushing across Jamaica. The island is inundated here with heavy rain, prompted a video like this. And this is a neighborhood, that really took on a lot of water here in Kingston, Jamaica. There you see it just piling up. And here in Cuba, Laura producing big waves crashing ashore. The island also seeing heavy rainfall from this storm, now moving closer to a U.S. landfall by midweek. So Laura having some of those impacts there. Here is what we know right now. Louisiana Governor John Bel Edwards says there may be just 12 to 18 hours of Marco rescue operations before Laura hits. He also urged residents to be self-sufficient for 72 hours. And if you're staying with friends or relatives, wear masks inside and practice social distancing. Mandatory evacuation orders are now in effect for several coastal Louisiana parishes in preparation for Hurricane Marco. At least 8 deaths are blamed on Tropical Storm Laura in Haiti and in the Dominican Republic. So, again, the real pickle here is the fact that we're going to have these back-to-back systems, Dr. Nab, coming in very short order with not a lot of recovery time because the weather is still going to not be optimal when it comes to cleanup in between.
Yeah, so when you're getting ready for a potentially very strong, maybe even major hurricane like Laura is expected to be for the Gulf of Mexico, well, you start to time it out. You figure out how much time do I have before the weather starts getting bad and I have to have my preparations, maybe evacuations done. But we've got the X factor in there with Marco interrupting that usually good weather that precedes a significant hurricane. So here's where Laura is now, near eastern Cuba, and here's the cone showing you how the northwestern Gulf is at play for a very strong hurricane, again, that could end up being stronger than explicitly shown here and could brush up against that Category 3 threshold. So this whole area needs to be ready way before the center comes ashore. And so when we look at the possibility of not just people inside the cone, but outside the cone possibly getting impacts and maybe even getting the center circulation, it's all about timing, right? So if we just had Laura to deal with, here's what we'd be looking at. For southeast Louisiana, if you were to get tropical storm conditions first arriving there with Laura, it could be early Wednesday morning. If you're in the Houston-Galveston area, for example, it could be Wednesday evening. So you'd want to have tonight and then all day Monday and Tuesday, and then maybe by the end of the day Tuesday you'd want to be ready. But Tuesday might not be all that great, okay, right? Because tomorrow we could have winds of tropical storm force arriving early in the morning in southeast Louisiana, then later in the day in south central Louisiana. So that means later on Monday and certainly Tuesday could be not so good along the coast. So here's a wind depiction, based on one of our global models that shows some strong winds, even if a weakening Marco stays just offshore. Into Tuesday morning, we could have some unpleasant weather as the beginnings of Laura are starting to show up kind of within the same calendar day. So, Tuesday you might not have as much time as you might think before the business end of Laura starts to arrive. And then here's a depiction of just the rain from the weather associated with Marco still near the coast Monday night into Tuesday morning, and then here comes Laura, and there's not much of a break in the weather, so maybe it's not tropical storm conditions all the way between Marco and Laura, but it might not be some great weather. So what's the bottom line here? We need to always, when we have a potentially significant hurricane coming in the Wednesday time frame, you got to be paying attention to your local officials. You got to be have your evacuation destination and plan in place so you can put that into place. But when you hear an evacuation instruction as Laura approaches, you need to go as soon as that instruction comes in, because the effects of Marco with these overlaying cones and overlaying storms are going to mean that the weather for your evacuation might not be so good.
My psoriatic arthritis pain, I had enough. It's not getting in my way.
Joint pain, swelling, tenderness, much better.
My psoriasis, clearer. Cosentix works on all of this.
4 years and counting.
So watch out.
I got this.
Watch me.
Real people with active psoriatic arthritis are feeling real relief with Cosentix. Cosentix is a different kind of targeted biologic. It treats the multiple symptoms of psoriatic arthritis to help you look and feel better. It even helps stop further joint damage. Don't use if you're allergic to Cosentix. Before starting, get checked for tuberculosis. An increased risk of infections and lowered ability to fight them may occur. Tell your doctor about an infection or symptoms. If your inflammatory bowel disease symptoms develop or worsen, or if you've had a vaccine or plan to, serious allergic reactions may occur.
I just look and feel better.
I got real relief with Cosentix.
Watch me.
Novartis is committed to supporting our community. Learn more at Cosentix.com.
The Greenlight debit card and app makes it easy to manage your kids' money with convenient tools like a built-in savings account, automated allowances, instant transfers, and more. Kids form smart money habits that prepare them for their futures. Greenlight, raise financially smart kids.
No! Wrong move! Old-fashioned bandages get dirty. They can let in water and germs. Look, it's falling off. New Skin is the flexible liquid bandage that seals out the bad stuff. There's a spray, too.
New Skin. Rethink how you heal.
When you've got auto glass damage, Safe Light can come to you. And you'll get a text when we're on our way.
just leave your keys on the dash, and we'll replace your windshield with safe, no-contact service. Schedule at safelight.com.
Safe Light Repair, Safe Light Replace.
Careful, your regular old can opener leaves razor-sharp edges. They can cut your hands. Or that dirty, sharp lid drops into your can.
Ew.
You need the new Safety Can Express. Now you can pop the top off and leave perfectly smooth edges on the lid and the can. Other openers use blades to cut through the lid, leaving razor-sharp edges. Safety Can Express actually unseals the lid from the side, leaving smooth, safe edges. Here's how it works. Lids get placed on top of the can in the factory, then sealed airtight. Safety Can Express uses a steel roller driven by powerful gears to break that seal open without cutting into the lid, leaving edges that are incredibly smooth. And watch this. After it's open, the lid stays put. It won't spill a drop till you pop the top. And it reseals for leftovers. Safety Can works on broken pop-top cans, dented cans, big heavy cans, small odd-shaped cans too. So don't leave those sharp lids just hanging around. No more sharp steel when Safety Can breaks the seal. No squeezing the handles, no twisting your wrist. For 200 years, we've opened cans the same way. Not anymore, thanks to Safety Can Express. Call and get the new Safety Can Express for just $29.99 through this special TV deal. This offer is not available on Amazon or anywhere else. But wait, call today and you can double your order. Just pay separate fee. Safety Can Express is in stock and ready for delivery. We will even ship it right to your door, absolutely free. Open any can, anytime, without the mess or stress. With Safety Can Express. Call now.
Call 1-800-252-2138. That's 1-800-252-2138. Or visit safetycanexpress.com. Call 1-800-252-2138 now.
A historic dual tropical threat for those living along the Gulf Coast. What you're looking at here is an overlay of two separate forecast cones as issued by the National Hurricane Center, one for Marco, one for Laura, both taking aim at the Gulf Coast. Both will be arriving sometime within the next 72 hours. Gosh, how rare is that? I mean, if you're a Weather Channel fan from forever ago, the cones used to be yellow. Now we've got two different shades of red on there. That's the only way that you'd be able to see this, right? There's no way to show you two forecast cones unless we've got two separate colors when it's like this. And of course, we've got much of Louisiana overlapped in both of those forecast cones. In Louisiana, in New Orleans, our own Chris Bruin is there for us tonight. And Chris, an infamous city when it comes to tropical systems approaching.
Yeah, and it's eerily, odd, right? This is the week of the anniversary of Katrina. Okay, not to say we're going to have anything like Katrina, but, this is the 15-year anniversary. So New Orleans has seen its fair share of heartbreak and tragedy when it comes to tropical systems, and they know how to prepare. And they certainly are much better prepared than even we were 15 years ago with Katrina. So we're ready. All 99 pumps in the city, by the way, are operating and ready to roll if needed. So that is good news. And usually you get about an inch of rain, and then once you hit that threshold, the pumps start kicking into gear. And then if you get a lot more rain on top of that in a short period of time, that's when you run into problems, especially in some of the more urbanized areas like the French Quarter, through the Garden District, and across areas near the lower 9th Ward, in different spots like that. So that's something we're going to be monitoring. Rainfall rates are going to be crucial. And anytime you have a tropical system like Hurricane Marco, tomorrow's going to be a crucial day here in the city. So hopefully you finish up your preparations. If you are leaving tonight to head to some friends or family, maybe if you live in Grand Isle, remember they went under mandatory evacuation, as well as Plaquemines Parish, areas along the East Bank. Those are spots that are vulnerable and have been ordered to evacuate. And also, it's a good reminder too, Mark, too, especially given today's situation with COVID-19, if you don't have an evacuation order, don't evacuate, because they would issue those orders if they really felt like your life was in jeopardy.
Absolutely. And if you do need to evacuate, maybe go to a friend's or a family's house that's respecting the virus the same way that you are, as opposed to going to a mass shelter where you're surrounded by people that you don't know. That way you can work on keeping yourself and your family safe. Now, let's talk a little bit more about Hurricane Marco. Disorganized a bit. There's some strong shear cutting across the waters of the Gulf. And so the big blow up of thunderstorms that we have right now is kind of on the north and east side of the storm, not right with the center. And that's been the trend. We'll continue to follow what should stay near hurricane status as it approaches the southeast coast of Louisiana. Many of the models keep the turn just off the coast, and that would severely limit the impacts on land. Some of the models still bring a landfall before the turn, and thus the cone basically covers both of those possibilities. Tropical storm warnings inland, hurricane watches and warnings as you look towards the coastline. That does include Grand Isle. New Orleans is in that hurricane watch tropical storm warning. So Lake Pontchartrain tropical storm warnings for you. Here is a look at the blow up of thunderstorms. This area is the hurricane and a new blow up of thunderstorms with that. All the colors on here are the strong shear, the strong winds aloft associated with that area of trophiness that's been cutting across the region. That said, I think we are seeing some good winds in between the buoys, and the hurricane hunters have been in here kind of sampling the storm. No significant changes from where we've been, and the hurricane models suggest that those winds should hold kind of steady state. But it's not the only storm we're watching. I want to go back to hurricane expert Dr. Rick Knabb, who's watching the next one down the line.
Yeah, Laura is over eastern Cuba, and for a tropical storm tangling with land, it looks pretty healthy, unfortunately. And with the environment that it's sitting under, it looks like this 60-mile-an-hour tropical storm is poised to become a hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico because of the very different environment in the atmosphere in the large scale that's affecting Laura as compared to Marco. Switch over to the water vapor, you can see the big difference. Upper level trough, southwesterly shear affecting Marco, keeping its intensity down, but big upper level high pressure over Laura. And as it gets past Cuba, it will likely strengthen to a hurricane pretty quickly. In fact, if it stays on the south side of Cuba, could get pretty strong even while it's tangling with Cuba. Certainly not expected to weaken much. Here's our subtropical ridge. It's going to steer things into the Gulf of Mexico. Here is the low-level spin of Laura. And then look at these traveling white lines. Big area of upper-level high pressure. That's weak wind shear. The atmosphere is just going to leave this system alone. And with the warm waters of the Gulf, it is likely to strengthen. Now, we're not guaranteeing that it's going to go exactly where the single run of the European model is forecasting it to go. There's a lot of spread in where this could go. Look at all these different tracks from the European model ensembles, and they are both inside and outside of the Laura cone, and we've got Marco to deal with in the meantime.
With Domino's $5.99 Mix-and-Match deal, you can feed a family of 4 for about $3 per person. So we asked one of our families to help us make this commercial about that deal.
Enjoy your pizza.
Safely feed a family of 4 for about $3 per person with the $5.99 Mix-and-Match deal.
Domino's!
When you've got auto glass damage, Safe Flight can come to you.
And you'll get a text when we're on our way. Just leave your keys on the dash, and we'll replace your windshield with safe, no-contact service. Schedule at safelight.com.
Safe Light Repair, Safe Light Replace.
And Doug.
You know, Limu, after all these years, it's the ones that got away that haunt me the most. Because you're not like everybody else. That's why Liberty Mutual customizes your car insurance. So you only pay for what you need.
What?
Oh, I said.
Oh, this is my floor.
No! Only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
We women are in the know about everything. From how much protein we're getting, to how many dates it takes to show them your place. So why don't we know how much estrogen is in our birth control pill? Get to know Lolo. Lolo Estrin FE provides pregnancy prevention with the lowest daily dose of estrogen, 10 micrograms. Is science sexy or what?
Serious risks of birth control pills include blood clots, stroke, and heart attack, which can be fatal. Smoking increases these risks, especially if you are over 35. So Lolo Estrin FE users should not smoke. Don't take the pill if you've had any of these conditions or high blood pressure that medicine can't control. Certain cancers, liver disease, unexplained vaginal bleeding, are taking hepatitis C drugs, or if you could be pregnant.
Ask your doctor about Lolo. the #1 prescribed branded birth control pill by OBGYNs. Are you in the low?
This summer, we've all got miles to make up. Miles to the job site, to the campsite, and anything else we set our sights on. Miles that take us back to the people we've missed, and to those who could make this summer mean more than ever before. Get the most out of those miles during the Ram Summer Clearance event.
New Planters Pop and Pour will single-handedly change the way you snack. Whether you're hitting the road or hitting the trail, you can keep on multi-snacking. New Planters Pop and Pour. Stay satisfied.
Kids can change minds. They can even change the world around us. Packed with protein plus 21 vitamins and minerals, we nourish them with Carnation Breakfast Essentials. Because today could change everything.
We have everybody stationed and ready to go in Puerto Rico and the Gulf Coast, and we have tremendous people. We have FEMA is lined up, and we have the Coast Guard ready. The Coast Guard has done a fantastic job. They do such good work, and we want to thank our great Coast Guard. I'm asking all Americans in the storm's path to follow the instructions of your state and local governments very closely. And I've approved emergency declarations for Puerto Rico and for Louisiana.
So that's President Trump saying that the federal government is prepared for the possibility of not one but two storms hitting the Gulf Coast in less than 3 days, which is what you're looking at here. The latest forecast track for both Marco and Laura, both expected to bring strong winds and rain to Texas and Louisiana for that matter. As you know, one tropical storm or hurricane can cause devastating flooding, but what does it mean when two come into a reasonably same area in such a short amount of time? Let's go to hurricane expert Dr. Rick Knabb for some in-depth analysis on this rare event. Rainfall events and rainfall flooding even well inland, often responsible for the most deaths from tropical systems. Now we've got two coming into basically the same state.
Yeah, and most of the time, one tropical storm or hurricane is more than enough to deal with, especially if it's a slow mover or it's large with regard to heavy rainfall. But we've got a double dose of tropical moisture in the form of Marco and Laura, and going into the same places, it's going to be kind of presenting the same kind of problem as a slow mover or a large storm. It's just, lengthening the period of time when you're going to have heavy rain in some spots. But not necessarily all the same spots are going to get rain from both storms. This is a combination of rainfall over the next week from both Marco and Laura. This is the European model's depiction of it. Most of this is Marco, and most of this is Laura in the European model's eye. Now compare that to what the GFS shows. It has that little bullseye in extreme southeast Louisiana having to do with Marco, but this is the GFS depiction of the rainfall footprint from Laura because the difference in the tracks of the two models. So in not every scenario that could play out here in the next week do we get a lot of overlap from the rainfall from both storms, but in some scenarios, like the European model, we very well could. Now, we already have a flood problem. So even taking Laura out of the mix, just dealing with Marco, we've already got a flood problem for locally heavy rainfall that could happen here in southeast Louisiana and southern portions of Mississippi and Alabama. So over the next day or two, we've got to be very careful not to drive onto water-covered roads because this footprint of rainfall just here in southeast Louisiana, right along the coastline of the Gulf of Mexico, means that a lot of our populated areas could get water on the roads. And we don't know exactly who's going to get the greatest amount, but the risk is there. And then here's the GFS, fortunately, if this one ends up being right, keeping most of the rainfall out of the more populated zone. So again, the farther south that this track ends up being for Marco and the weaker it ends up being, the better it will be for lessening the storm surge and the rainfall-induced flooding. But we still could have a relatively lengthy period of rainfall along the Louisiana coastline. Look at the future radar from a model depiction. Now, not everybody gets a lot of heavy rain, but a lot of these populated areas do. And that's just kind of table-setting rains for what could be a much more significant system, as you can see from that model depiction of Laura. But then, even if we didn't have Marco, Laura would be bad enough in terms of the rainfall possibilities because it's expected to be a larger, stronger system and not moving super fast as it comes ashore somewhere here in the northwestern or north central Gulf of Mexico. Here's the rainfall footprint just from Laura. Again, from the European model, again, has some overlap with Marco's rains, whereas the GFS has most of its rains farther west. But, Mark, I think the bottom line here is, though, we got to keep our eye on the ball with what's going to happen each day. And tonight into tomorrow morning, Marco poses that rainfall and flood threat. And, you know, the fact that we have two of them just increases the chances that some of you get an elongated period of bad weather, but doesn't guarantee that everybody gets rain from Marco, and in the same spots we get the same thing from Laura. But there will be some overlap, it looks like.
And so much of southeast Louisiana in particular is so far ahead of pace for summer, 10 to even 12 inches in the surplus column. So it wouldn't take much to cause some flooding. And then, of course, there are, this stole all the headlines, right? A 1-2 punch, two different storms coming in. So we talked about the rainfall component. What about the storm surge? If Marco is able to push that water up at all, is there enough time to bring that water level down before then Laura shows up and starts raising the water level again?
I think there is, because Marco is not a really large system and will be weakening. So I don't think it's going to keep the water levels up significantly high for a long period of time. But when you combine at least some, residual coastal flooding and some not so good weather and some local flooding on roadways in the Monday and Tuesday timeframe as Laura's going through the Gulf of Mexico, you can envision scenes where people are out getting ready and getting supplies and maybe evacuating for Laura while there's some water on the roads and maybe some impediments to getting out of coastal areas because of some of the coastal flooding effects of Marco. So I don't think Marco is going to overall be as big of an event as Laura is, but it could make the outcome for people for Laura worse by making it harder for them to prepare because of the water on the roads in the next couple of days in some spots.
Putting your emergency management hat on, this has got to be tough for the local officials to try to explain which storm they're talking about, when you need to be ready for which one. I guess that's why there's names involved, but gosh, this is a new little task for everyone out there.
Yeah, I think, though, the atmosphere is cutting us a little bit of slack here by spacing the storms out by a couple of days. I mean, the winds of tropical storm force that could arrive in southeast Louisiana tomorrow morning, that's certainly Marco. Those winds will probably end sometime on Tuesday, and then we'll have a new set of watches and warnings for Laura, and I think a new set of evacuation instructions that could affect a lot more people.
And of course, we are staying with you through the night here on the Weather Channel, tracking that rare dual tropical threat in the Gulf. Keep it tuned here for all your updates.
At Safe Flight, we're committed to taking care of you and your car. We'll fix it right with no contact service you can trust.
So if you have auto glass damage, stay safe with Safe Flight.
Safe Flight Repair, Safe Flight Replace.
On the road again. Book 2 separate qualifying stays and earn a free night. The open road is open again, and wherever you're headed, Choice Hotels is there. Book direct at choicehotels.com.
A lung cancer diagnosis can leave you holding your breath. But Bristol-Myers Squibb is working to change things by researching new kinds of medicines that could help you live longer, including options that are chemo-free, because we're committed to bringing new hope into lung cancer care. Learn about our lung cancer research at lungcancerresearch.com.
It's so good to see you guys. Han, out here.
Are we on yet?
Oh.
I thought we were doing a Zoom thing.
Confused?
No.
Maybe you just need a Snickers.
Is skincare from around the world better than Olay? Olay Regenerist faced 131 premium products from 12 countries over 10 years. Olay's hydration was unbeaten every time. Face anything.
Find out more at Olay.com.
Jake from State Farm. I can't thank you enough for getting me the Serena savings on my insurance. can I get you 10 free minutes in the broth bath?
Serena, with State Farm, everyone's offered surprisingly great rates.
Yeah, sure. How about a complimentary wet moss wrap?
Here's the deal. These savings are for everyone.
Seriously? She's just jealous.
When you want the real deal, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
You've crafted, burnt cookies, called your mom, made a mask from a t-shirt, trained your dog to dance. You've Zoomed, you've posted, watched that tiger thing twice, stocked up on toilet paper, dyed your kid's hair, made hand sanitizer. Now, it's time to get out and play. Tennis. It lets you keep your social distance without being socially distant. So call a friend, grab a racket. It's time to get out and play.
Mama, Mama.
Why do I keep falling asleep during the day? What's making me so tired? I kept asking myself these questions. It felt like I was more than tired. Then I was diagnosed with narcolepsy. There are 5 major symptoms. I waited too long to take action, but you don't have to. Visit morethantired.com now. Take the narcolepsy symptom screener and find a sleep specialist to share your results. Don't wait. Visit morethantired.com today.
Unbelievable, this is real.
When your cameras roll, our experts react.
Jaw-dropping.
Weather Gone Viral premieres next Sunday at 9 here on the Weather Channel.
Currently in our area, 79 degrees under partly cloudy skies. Tonight, partly cloudy skies, low 76. Winds south-southwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Monday, partly cloudy early, scattered thunderstorms developing in the afternoon. High 91, chance of rain 50%. Monday night, partly cloudy, low 77. Winds west-southwest at 10 to 15 miles per hour. Here's our 7-day outlook.
Here in Key West, we're awaiting the tropical squalls from Tropical Storm Laura. It will make its closest approach tomorrow afternoon and tomorrow evening. It's going to move due south of us about midday and then off to the south and west into the Gulf of Mexico later tomorrow night and Tuesday. It's going to be a couple hundred miles away, so we're not expecting tropical storm force winds. That's 39 miles an hour or higher, and that's why the National Hurricane Center did not upgrade the tropical storm watch to a warning at 5 p.m. Eastern. In fact, they dropped the watch from Craig Key north. The upper Keys, Key Largo, no longer under a watch. But here in the middle and lower Keys, we are going to get some gusty winds and some tropical squalls. They'll be coming in from the periphery, the far outer rain bands of Laura, and that could bring in maybe a half an inch to an inch of rain. We're not going to get the kind of rainfall totals we've seen in Hispaniola and over in Cuba tonight. Some spots in the Dominican Republic have picked up 10 inches of rain because we're so far from the center of Laura. The other thing we're concerned with, we do have a coastal flood watch. The south side of the Keys, the wind direction coming this way, that'll push some of the water up. So at high tide between now and late Monday night and Tuesday morning, we could see the water up about 1 to 2 feet higher. It's already a little higher than average. So the bottom line, basically, I'll describe it as a bad beach day here in the Keys on Monday. Tuesday, the sun is back out, still windy, and then we're back to more typical tropical weather for the rest of the week. So they dodged Isaias. Didn't get a raindrop. Tomorrow they get brushed by with Tropical Storm Laura, but we've got a long way to go in the Keys. They well know that this season can go into October and even early November.
Yeah, a long way to go in the Keys, but also a long way to go for the, the history of what's still to come for Laura. Marco, a little bit different. It's fighting off some wind shear, a new blow-up of thunderstorms, but not right over the center, so probably has maxed out its wind intensity at that 75 mile per hour threshold. It will be approaching the southeast Louisiana coastline, eventually turning west and weakening with some of that wind, still bringing at least some rain along with it. But Laura may take over as as the big threat. Even with land interaction between Hispaniola and the mountains there, the mountains of Cuba, it looks fairly healthy. And gosh, look at the rain potential continuing for Jamaica. Huge cloud tops right over the entire island. So with all those headwinds, we're still at a 60-mile-per-hour tropical storm, which you might be a little bit surprised about, right? Because it's got all those big mountains messing things up. Usually these systems, when they tangle with land, don't do very well. That one still looks reasonably healthy. So if we can keep any kind of core near the water, just off of Cuba, going across the far western side of Cuba and into the very warm waters of the Gulf of Mexico, we could have a fairly rapidly organizing storm threat here. Right now, the forecast calls for a 105-mile-per-hour hurricane on Wednesday afternoon, but there is a risk that that is still on the lower end. Even the National Hurricane Center in their discussion is giving at least a tip of the cap to some of the hurricane models that suggest that this could really ramp up even faster than that. So that is a risk you need to be aware of, considering you first have Marco going through and then you have to prepare for what could be the much bigger Laura. So first comes Marco, then Laura follows in. Maybe not exactly over the same areas, but close enough that you don't necessarily want to be preparing for Laura while Marco is moving through. So, gosh, Dr. Knabb, this is a rare threat to be able to talk about two hurricanes in the Gulf within, what, a day and a half or so of each other.
Yeah, and I think when this is all said and done, you'll be able to talk to some people who got directly impacted by both storms, some people who got one and not the other, and some people in the threat areas that got really fortunate and didn't get a significant impact from either one. But the threat is the big overlap here. Now, one thing that could provide a little bit of a break between Marco and Laura is if Marco weakens faster and or stays farther offshore on the southern side of this cone. That's what we can hope for, just for having Marco be less impactful, but giving us a little bit more of a break before Laura arrives. So it's at least possible that the center stays offshore and is weaker than the current forecast and doesn't even last as long and maybe doesn't have much of an impact in places like Houston or Lake Charles. But that's just hoping. We still have the expectation that we're going to get tropical storm force winds arriving sometime tomorrow morning in extreme southeast Louisiana. That will definitely be Marco. Laura is still way out of the picture at this point. Even tomorrow evening, if tropical storm force winds make it this far west, then it would be tomorrow evening in central portions of Louisiana, and maybe we eke out those conditions getting to the Texas-Louisiana border maybe late tomorrow night into early Tuesday. Now, as for the break between the storms, now here's a depiction from one of the global models that shows tomorrow evening, there's Marco and here's Laura. So there's a decent break in the winds between the two of them. But Marco starts to kind of slow down and elongate while Laura's wind field maybe starts to expand a little bit over the Gulf of Mexico. So it starts to fill in on Tuesday in places like southeast Louisiana. And then the later you get on Tuesday, the more the conditions will be going downhill in advance of Laura. So, and that's just wind. If you look at rainfall, we look like we might have some disturbed weather lasting much of the day on Tuesday with whatever is left of Marco and the approach of Laura there. So I would say that the greatest risk between the storms is having some unsettled weather that could make for wet roads as you are preparing for Laura. But this will be the significant impact here, with the center maybe coming ashore sometime late Wednesday, but you also have to deal with the possibility that the winds of Tropical Storm 4 start arriving late Tuesday or early Wednesday.
When you've got auto glass damage, Safe Light can come to you.
And you'll get a text when we're on our way. Just leave your keys on the dash, and we'll replace your windshield with safe, no-contact service. Schedule at safelight.com.
Safe Light Repair, Safe Light Replace.
Whether holding down the fort or bouncing back to school, childhood is always in session. So keep feeding us right with Sun-Made snacks. Just like when you were a kid. Delicious, made with whole fruit. Sun-Made.
Now with Kellogg's Feeding Reading Program, when you buy a box, you can get a free book, turning boxes into books. Over 1 million and counting. Just buy a box and you can get a book and turn your favorite foods into new favorite stories.
We love our new home. There's so much space.
We have a guest room now.
But we have ants.
You're slouching again, Ted.
Expired. Expired. Expired.
Thanks, Aunt Bonnie.
It's a lot of house.
I hope you can keep it clean.
At least Geico makes bundling our home and car insurance easy.
Which helps us save a lot of money.
Oh, Teddy, did you get my friend request?
I'll have to check.
Aunt Joni's here.
For bundling made easy, go to geico.com.
A lot of the healthy foods that our patients eat and drink are very acidic and aren't necessarily great for your teeth. When patients eat or drink acidic foods, they're actually pulling out the minerals from the enamel, which over time can cause sensitivity, and a lot of people start to see their teeth turn yellow. Using Pronamel will help push the minerals back into the enamel, keeping it nice and strong. I recommend patients use Pronamel whenever they brush their teeth. Pronamel should be their everyday toothpaste. They're doing a good job taking care of their bodies. I want to help them do a good job taking care of their teeth.
When it's especially important to keep skin clean, keep reaching for Cetaphil. Recommended by dermatologists. Awarded by Allure. And most of all, loved by skin. Cetaphil, the cleanser sensitive skin loves.
A lot of folks are asking me lately how to get their dishes as clean as possible. I tell them, you should try Cascade Platinum plus the power of Oxy. Cascade Platinum plus Oxy breaks down food soils some detergents can leave behind, washing away even the smallest food residue so it doesn't redeposit on your dishes. And Oxy is Cascade's most powerful clean, formulated without chlorine bleach for a hygienic clean you can see and feel. Cascade plus the power of Oxy, the #1 recommended brand in North America.
This is Kate.
Hey.
She takes 2 prescriptions. Kate's son Jack takes 1 too. Kate works hard and thought she had good insurance, but she still pays too much. That's no good. So Kate downloaded the GoodRx app. Now she can compare prescription prices to find the best discounts. She even beats her insurance price. Good for you, Kate. Good for you. GoodRx. Stop paying too much for your prescriptions. Download the free app today.
All right, calm night here in New Orleans, but things are about to change. We've got Hurricane Marco churning in the Gulf of Mexico. That'll impact us come Monday, so tomorrow. And then right on the heels, we've got what could potentially be a much stronger storm, Laura. Still in the Caribbean and a lot of uncertainty, but we know we are going to have impacts from both storms. We'll break down what that is, time it out, and talk about the differences in scenarios coming up. Mike. The first U.S. impacts from Laura will be felt right here in the Florida Keys. I'm meteorologist Mike Seidel in Key West, and coming up, we'll time it out for you and let you know what to expect here on Monday.
And so we are staying live around the clock with you, tracking this rare tropical threat. 2 tropical systems moving through the Gulf of Mexico. Both could be hurricanes, with landfalls expected within 72 hours from now. I'm Storm Specialist Mark Elliott. A lot to walk you through tonight. We have Marco and Laura headed to the Gulf Coast right now. So joining me as we track it all, meteorologist Julie Martin in the lab tonight, hurricane expert Dr. Rick Knabb here in the studio with me, and meteorologist Chris Bruin kicking things off for us live in New Orleans as the city is preparing for these 2 storms to come a little bit too close for comfort. Chris, New Orleans no stranger to preparing for storms, but I'm sure the residents would rather not prepare for 2 at the same time.
Yeah, especially during the anniversary, 15-year anniversary of Hurricane Katrina, mind you. That's this week, all right? So a lot of people, remembering Katrina and the impact still affected to this day in some neighborhoods. So be mindful of that. Thankfully, this is not anything like Katrina, and we're in a much better situation. We've learned a lot in the last 15 years. Let's talk about timing, because we know tomorrow's going to be a day of change. So what you experienced today on those last minute preps, doing that tomorrow is going to be difficult, if not impossible at times, especially traveling from different sides of town. A lot of bridges around the city too. So that puts you at more elevation, exposure to higher winds, and that could really make it difficult. Heavy rainfall, that will be our biggest concern. We know how easily the city of New Orleans can flood, and remember, it's a city below sea level, so we're on a levee right now. The Mississippi River's right here, and it's like all across the metro area. Levees protecting the water from getting into neighborhoods. So when you bring in a lot of rainfall, that's a problem. And Mark, we had our wettest July on record here in New Orleans with over 15 inches of rain just in the month alone. So ground is saturated. Thankfully, we didn't see any rain today. but that's all going to change come tomorrow. And then we've got more moisture on top of that once Laura pushes into the Gulf of Mexico and nears the coast.
Yeah, gosh, that rainy kind of base is so crucial to this. The summer months, depending on which observation station you look at, roughly 10 inches in the surplus on either side of the New Orleans area. So even a little bit of rain can go a long way to cause more flooding through those areas that are so soggy. And this is the current status of Hurricane Marco. As of the 7 o'clock Central Time, 8 o'clock Eastern advisory, 75-mile-per-hour winds, still moving off towards the northwest at this rate, and that forecast is set to continue until it approaches the Louisiana coastline. Will it turn to the west and start weakening thanks to shear nearby before we make landfall, or does it happen right along the coast or just after? The cone is basically accounting for all of those scenarios, and the models are still a little bit split. They're close, but gosh, you know, 10s to 20s of miles in either direction can make a big difference for how much wind makes it inland for these tropical storm watches and warnings, and how much of that core of wind, which is reasonably small because it's a small hurricane, actually gets on land. But with the potential there, hurricane warnings have been issued in southeast Louisiana. Here's a look at the shear that I've been telling you about, those strong winds thanks to the trough. That trough is helping to pick up Marco off to the north, and as that wind gets a little bit closer to the core of thunderstorms, it will really tilt it over even more. It's already tilted over, it's already sheared a little bit, but that will continue, and that will start to be the demise of at least of the wind threat. Here's a look at the current winds. Some of the buoys just north of that big blow-up of thunderstorms gusting now between 30 and 35 miles per hour. But we do have a Hurricane Hunter flight that's been going through the center of the storm. Now a couple of passes through that center, seeing winds that are just below hurricane strength on some of their more reliable devices there, looking down at the bubbles of the ocean to determine the wind with the wind speeds, but where they are now, you wouldn't actually expect a lot of wind. So those, don't be fooled by that circle that's down near the bottom of the graph. You wouldn't expect to see a lot of wind from a small storm there that's sheared, and this is well to the south side where they're moving through. So all that data is going directly into the hurricane models, and those models have been consistent right on either side of hurricane strength until we get close enough to that shear, and then we really lose that wind quickly. And here's a look at that wind. Tropical storm force winds approach Monday into Monday afternoon, a little core of hurricane force winds, and then it really spins down quickly. These small systems can ramp up very quickly. They can also spin down very quickly, and I think that will occur thanks to land interaction and thanks to that shear being nearby. As for the max wind potential, wind, 50, 60 miles per hour certainly can't be ruled out, but it's going to be a small area. And a quick look at the timing again for some of those wind gusts city by city here. New Orleans will see those winds through the day Monday, and then by Monday night, overnight into Tuesday, already the wind threat is subsiding. So it's a quick push of that. Some big rains already off the coast, but that's just the beginning. That's the tropical moisture out ahead of Marco. So when you look at the rain that's still to come, again, small hurricane, small rain footprint. Both models suggest southeast Louisiana, maybe up to the Lake Pontchartrain area, will have the biggest push of extra rain, and that means the biggest push of flood potential as well as severe weather. There is a tornado threat here as we go through the next day or two. But those small storms can also push the water pretty effectively. So I want to bring in hurricane expert Dr. Knabb, who's looking at the surge component, even with a small storm.
Yeah, don't let the fact that Marco doesn't look really impressive on satellite. It's obviously a sheared system that's kind of bursting and struggling against that southwesterly wind shear. But look at this pressure, 991 millibars. This is a low pressure system that is no way are we going to avoid having the push from the southeast and east into this concave-shaped coastline where Louisiana and Mississippi come together. It's already starting to happen. In fact, when you look at some of the observations, we're coming out of low tide from earlier, a few hours ago. We've already got water rises to the east and southeast of New Orleans that are half a foot to a foot above normally dry ground at the coastline. But we don't have the maximum onshore push, nor are we at high tide yet. that could start to align a little bit more tomorrow morning as the storm gets closer. The southeasterly flow into a place like Shell Beach will be on the increase and will be at astronomical high tide. So the water levels could be considerably higher tomorrow morning as compared to this evening. And if you look at the forecast from the National Hurricane Center of how high above normally dry ground the salt water could get within certain regions, it's this zone from Morgan City over to the mouth of the Mississippi where somewhere in that area we could get 4 to 6 feet above normally dry ground of salt water. It's not necessarily going to happen everywhere in there. And then the 3 to 5 feet is out east of New Orleans. Lake Pontchartrain could have a water rise 2, 3, or 4 feet. This does not include downtown New Orleans. You're not under a storm surge watch or warning, but Lake Pontchartrain's under a watch. And here's our warning where there is the expectation somewhere in that zone of southeast Louisiana, maybe portions of Mississippi, where we are expecting the danger of life-threatening storm surge. All it has to do is get up above about 3 feet, and that could be very life-threatening. So, Julie, the message there is to evacuate if told to do so by your local officials. And we just have to hope that it weakens and goes a little farther south. The more those two things happen, the less the impacts will be. But we can't take that to the bank just yet.
Absolutely. Tropical storm force winds, though, very likely in southeast Louisiana. We take a look here at Marco and what we can expect in terms of timing. Does look like by Monday afternoon into Monday evening, going to be looking at perhaps some type of landfall in the southern parishes there of Louisiana. By Tuesday morning early, still dealing with that 60-mile-per-hour storm. A 40-mile-per-hour storm as it works its way westward then into Texas at still a 30-mile-per-hour storm, perhaps even by Wednesday of this week. So we look at what's happening right now. Some of the rain already starting to work its way onshore here in the Florida Panhandle. We also have a marine advisory out here. Some very heavy rain just offshore here and some very rough seas there. Some waterspouts being reported as well earlier on this evening. I-10 starting to get wet here as we head toward Destin and Crestview over toward Pensacola at the moment. But here's what we can expect for you in Pensacola. Some of those gusts starting to really pick up throughout the day on Monday. So by the time we get into Monday night, maybe 30-mile-per-hour plus gusts. Remember, you're going to be on that right front quadrant of the storm, which tends to be the messier side, and they call it the dirty side. So that's where some of the worst of that weather is going to be. Could see as much as 4 inches here in and around Pensacola and Mobile Bay, and that is enough, Chris Bruin, to cause flooding. So it's not just New Orleans or southeast Louisiana we're worried about here, but really much of the Gulf Coast.
We're going to have beach erosion all the way through the Emerald Coast because of that onshore push. And then you bring in Laura behind that. Our beaches are going to take a beating. Even if you don't even have any other impacts, you're going to have higher rip currents, larger waves, and that's going to eat away that sand. We're already seeing it. New video in to us here of preparations underway, kind of ready.
Okay, let me take that from Chris Bruin. Having some audio troubles, we will fix those and get back out to him as soon as we can. He's keeping his finger on the pulse of the preparations in the northern Gulf Coast area for both Marco and Laura, and we're going to really need to be listening to what the local officials are saying in places like Louisiana over the next several days, because Laura appears to be more of a broad, more significant threat for more people over the next few days, and it could even be a major hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico. So expect it to be stronger than Marco, and right now, don't be fooled by the fact that it's just a tropical storm. Part of the reason for that is that it is tangling with the landmass, mountainous in some places in Cuba, but look at all that very deep convection between Cuba and Jamaica. So the only reason it's not stronger is that land interaction. Moving west-northwest at 21 miles an hour, so give it a day or so, and it will get clear of Cuba. But even between now and when it gets to the Gulf of Mexico, if it spends enough time just south of Cuba over the warm waters, it could get a little stronger a little bit sooner. But it's just a matter of time before it strengthens because of the very different atmospheric environment that Laura is in as compared to Marco. Here's Marco struggling against the wind shear from the southwest in association with this big upper level trough over Texas and the western Gulf, but over the West Atlantic and over Laura, big high pressure. See this fanning out of the cirrus clouds, weak wind shear, and that is going to stay the case over Laura for the next few days as it gets into the Gulf of Mexico. Solid white lines are our subtropical high pressure that's going to be steering Laura west-northwestward into the Gulf of Mexico. Marco will find its way into kind of weak steering currents as it gets sheared from the southwest. But watch how the upper level high pressure and those traveling white lines really starts to take shape over the Gulf of Mexico. So let's pick it up here on Tuesday. Look at the fast moving white lines shaped like this. Big dome of high pressure aloft. That means weak wind shear over Laura, and combined with the very warm waters of the Gulf of Mexico that are warmer than average for this time of year, and it's staying that way all the way up until it gets to the northern or northwestern Gulf. It just doesn't seem like there's much in the way of Laura strengthening. Now, there is no guarantee of exactly where it's going to go. That, what I just showed you, is just one depiction of where the center could go. But look at how the cone is a little bit farther west of there. It includes Houston, includes Lake Charles. And if you look at the intensity forecast, you see the Hurricane Center forecasting 105 miles an hour Wednesday afternoon. But there's more time beyond then for it to strengthen. And rapid intensification in that kind of environment is a distinct possibility. So a lot of reasons why it could end up being stronger than forecast here and could possibly become a major hurricane. Some of the dynamical models show that happening. The statistical models don't pick up on that sort of thing quite as well. But in between, a solid hurricane is almost a certainty. Now look at all these European model ensemble tracks that go from east of New Orleans all the way to west of Houston. So many of you inside and outside of the cone need to keep your eye on Laura because you cannot guarantee exactly where it's going to go. And one thing that's very track dependent is the rainfall. If the Euro farther east is right, look at the rains for Louisiana and Mississippi. If the GFS is right, for example, Laura would drop a lot of rain in East Texas and West Louisiana. Now let's go back to our Chris Bruin in New Orleans.
Yeah, a lot of spread there on the models. Thanks for pointing that out. And we're awaiting the newest advisory here within the hour, and that will have an updated cone. It'll be interesting to see because there's been a lot of swings here over the last 48 hours from west back to east and back and forth. It'll be interesting to see what the latest update is. And of course, we'll get that to you as soon as we get it in. But again, new video coming out to our south, not here in New Orleans, but at Grand Isle, Louisiana, where they're already seeing some coastal erosion due to the higher swells that are impacting the coastline from Hurricane Marco. So it's already churning up the seas. You're going to see rip current risk and higher seas, even over towards the Florida Panhandle, certainly Gulf Shores, getting into the Mississippi Gulf Coast as well. So some coastal flooding, certainly that storm surge potential in those low-lying spots, especially in those little, if you look at Louisiana, those little fingers that jut out into the Gulf of Mexico, those are going to be vulnerable spots, and those are the areas that are under those evacuation orders. As far as New Orleans goes, we've got a big day ahead and really a big week. Hurricane Marco first. Impacts go downhill throughout the day on Monday. We'll start off with cloudy skies, breezy conditions picking up in intensity. Tropical storm warning, by the way, so gusts easily 40 to 60 miles per hour, especially in the afternoon and evening hours, with the potential of 4 to 6 inches of rainfall. We'll have much more continuing live coverage of both Marco and Laura next.
When was the last time you really looked out the window? What do you see? The awakening of the rising sun or light dancing across the mountaintops? Look for a moment longer and you'll see beauties all around us. Like a painting, moving in the wind, speaking to the soul. The world flashing past, still yet to explore. Look out the window. The summer of Jeep is here.
Right now, get $4,240 in total values on the 2020 Jeep Gladiator Overland.
Can't wait to tell everyone about AT&T's big 5G news.
AT&T has nationwide 5G?
Yep.
And that's faster?
Faster, yeah.
But is it reliable?
Uh-huh, and secure.
You should consider making a big deal about it.
Bigger?
I said bigger.
Oh, bigger deal, bigger than what I'm doing.
It's not complicated.
A 5G network needs a 5G device. Now everyone, including existing customers, can get a free Samsung Galaxy Note 20 after trade-in.
When you've got auto glass damage, Safe Flight can come to you.
And you'll get a text when we're on our way. Just leave your keys on the dash, and we'll replace your windshield with safe, no-contact service. Schedule at safeflight.com.
Safe Flight Repair, Safe Flight Replace.
It's so good to see you guys. Han, out here.
Are we on yet?
Oh.
I thought we were doing a Zoom thing.
Confused?
No.
Maybe you just need a Snickers.
My psoriatic arthritis pain, I had enough. It's not getting in my way.
Joint pain, swelling, tenderness, much better.
My psoriasis, clearer. Cosentix works on all of this.
4 years and counting.
So watch out.
I got this.
Watch me.
Real people with active psoriatic arthritis are feeling real relief with Cosentix. Cosentix is a different kind of targeted biologic. It treats the multiple symptoms of psoriatic arthritis to help you look and feel better. It even helps stop further joint damage. Don't use if you're allergic to Cosentix. Before starting, get checked for tuberculosis. An increased risk of infections and lowered ability to fight them may occur. Tell your doctor about an infection or symptoms. If your inflammatory bowel disease symptoms develop or worsen, or if you've had a vaccine or plan to, serious allergic reactions may occur.
I just look and feel better.
I got real relief with Cosentix.
Watch me.
Novartis is committed to supporting our community. Learn more at Cosentix.com.
What do you do? Your husband or father was just diagnosed with lung cancer after being exposed to asbestos while on the job. You've got your hands full with his medical treatments. People are telling you to find an attorney, but there's so little time.
Let me help. Just call Whites in Luxembourg. They've successfully handled thousands of asbestos cases and will put your mind at ease. They have achieved the highest verdicts for New York lung cancer and mesothelioma victims. Their clients benefit from the $30 billion in trust funds for victims, even for smokers. Your husband's case will have the support of one of the largest firms of its kind, and they know how to win. So many New Yorkers have made the right choice, so can you. Do what's best for your loved ones. Call Whites in Luxembourg today or visit asbestosLawyerNYC.com.
Call 800-303-9100. That's 800-303-9100.
Unbelievable, this is real.
When your cameras roll, our experts react.
Jaw-dropping.
Weather Gone Viral premieres next Sunday at 9 here on the Weather Channel.
Currently in our area, 79 degrees under partly cloudy skies. Tonight, some clouds. A stray shower or thunderstorm is possible. Low 76. Monday, thunderstorms developing in the afternoon. High 90. Chance of rain 50%. Monday night, a few clouds. Low 77. Winds west-southwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Here's our 7-day outlook.
Welcome back. We are getting video in showing some of the impacts from Laura pushing across Jamaica. Take a look here. The island inundated with heavy rain, prompting flooding like this in a particular neighborhood here. There you can see just all of that water piling up there. The mud is flowing. And of course, this out of Kingston, Jamaica here from Laura, which will now set its sights for the Gulf of Mexico and the U.S. And in Cuba, Laura producing big waves crashing ashore here. The island also seeing some very heavy rainfall from the storm. Now, of course, as I mentioned, moving much closer to a U.S. landfall, but kicking up some pretty big waves out there and getting into some even better environmental conditions, we think, as it progresses toward the U.S. So here's what we know right now. Louisiana Governor John Bel Edwards tells residents to expect a left hook from Marco and a right hook from Laura. The city of New Orleans suspended parking restrictions on neutral grounds and sidewalks so residents can move their vehicles to higher ground. The Red Cross is mobilizing teams for both Marco and Laura, and Governor Greg Abbott has declared a state of emergency for 23 Texas counties. So getting ready for a 1-2 punch, Dr. Knabb, and there's not going to be a lot of time in between, unfortunately, for residents and emergency officials to really, be able to clean up and then move on.
Yeah, if we just had Laura to deal with, that would be more than enough, right? But Marco brings its own hazards, and it certainly complicates getting ready for Laura, and it's especially difficult to deal with the fact that Laura is not what we expect it to be later. It's a tropical storm now. We expect it to be a hurricane, possibly even becoming a major hurricane over the Gulf of Mexico. And we have to be ready for changes to Laura over the Gulf while we're dealing with the weather of Marco. And there's so many of you from Texas over to Alabama and Mississippi that could take a direct hit from Laura, either inside or outside of that cone. Things could change with regard to where it goes over the next few days. Don't think that just because you're not in the cone, that means that you're out of danger, okay? And also, the forecast of the intensity could change. There's time beyond Wednesday afternoon, possibly, especially farther west, for it to strengthen some more, and it could get stronger in this 1 to 2 day time frame. Rapid intensification near the coastline is always a risk when you have the environment and the warm waters of the Gulf that we expect to be dealing with. And even though Laura might come ashore sometime, daytime or nighttime on Wednesday, the winds of tropical storm force could start arriving sooner than that, especially if it goes farther east. Southeast Louisiana could start getting the effects of Laura as soon as Wednesday morning. Place like Southeast Texas, it might be more like Wednesday evening. But between now and then, we have the winds of tropical storm force from Marco that will be likely coming ashore in Southeast Louisiana tomorrow morning. So the big question is, after they start on Monday, how long do they last? We really could use Tuesday as a prep day for Laura, couldn't we? Now, the global model depiction of the winds shows some gusty conditions still on the coast of Louisiana associated with Marco well into Tuesday, and then the wind field of Laura starts to expand. So there might be only a relatively short amount of time during the day on Tuesday where the winds die down to very comfortable levels for preparation, but that's just to deal with the wind. Now, what about the water? It could be raining in between the two systems. That hinders evacuations. That hinders going out and getting supplies. This is early Tuesday morning. Could have some unsettled weather between Marco and Laura through much of the day on Tuesday before the true effects of Laura start to arrive, perhaps as early as Wednesday morning. And again, we're dealing with the possibility of a major hurricane. There are dynamical models that forecast that. And whenever you see a big difference in the models, that means we have to prepare for the possibilities of having to deal with a stronger storm than might have been forecast right now. And so given all of this, given the complications of Marco, given that Laura could rapidly intensify and we don't know exactly where it's going to go, be ready to act quickly because the weather might not be so great because of Marco. In the case that emergency managers call for evacuations, say tomorrow or on Tuesday in advance of Laura, but you got to deal with the weather. So you want to allow for as much time as possible to evacuate or to take other preparations and do those as soon as you're instructed, as soon as you have the opportunity after the weather gets good enough, after Marco goes by. So got to know your zone, find out your destination now, and Chris Bruin, one thing that people in Louisiana can be doing is maybe hosting a friend who does live in an evacuation zone so they don't have to go to a shelter, and you can lessen the spread of the virus and so forth.
Yeah, if you have the ability to have, friends nearby that aren't in an evacuation zone that you could go to, that's going to be your number one option, especially if you are urged to evacuate, rather than go to the shelters. Use that as the last resort. Hotels are another great option, and you don't have to travel far and wide. Stay closer in, especially with a storm like Marco. However, Marco is going to have its own blow here in Louisiana, and especially around New Orleans. We know flooding is going to be our biggest risk, but winds are going to be a factor factor too, and especially in an area that's seen so much rainfall this summer, it's something we've got to watch. So hopefully your preparations are complete. That's what the governor of Louisiana was urging everyone to have it done by tonight, because tomorrow morning it's going to be a very different situation. We're going to have weather to deal with and conditions going downhill. Squalls expected. I mean, at times visibility between here on the West Bank to downtown, you're not even going to be able to see that. Travel is going to be impacted and bridges could even become closed. We're going to talk about that threat and more next.
Domino's knows delivery, so when we asked our team members how to make carry-out more convenient, they had thoughts.
Frisbee it.
That's a thought. Deliver it. Even better. Introducing Domino's Carside Delivery. Just pull up, check in online, and we bring your food to you. It's carry-out delivered.
The story of the Kind Mini. We took the full-size bar and cut it in half. So the next time it's 3 o'clock and you want some delicious dark chocolate, grab a dark chocolate nuts and sea salt mini with whole almonds and just 90 calories. It's a kinder way to satisfy.
Tide Power Pods one-up the cleaning power of liquid.
Can it one-up spaghetti night?
It sure can.
Really?
Can it one-up breakfast in bed?
Yeah, for sure.
Thanks, boys. What about that?
Yep.
It can?
Yeah, even that.
I would very much like to see that.
Me too.
Introducing Tide Power Pods. One up the toughest stains with 50% more cleaning power than liquid detergent. Any further questions?
Nope.
One up the power of liquid with Tide Power Pods.
It's Jake from State Farm.
Sounds like a really good deal.
Jake from State Farm at 3 in the morning. Who is this?
It's Jake from State Farm.
What are you wearing, Jake from State Farm?
Khakis? Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
When you're 50 plus, the important part isn't the number, it's the plus. Switch your wireless service to Consumer Cellular, and these are just some of the pluses you can expect. Excellent reliability. We use the nation's largest premium networks. Plus, maximum value. You can get talk, text, and data for just $20 a month. Plus, superior customer support. We've been ranked #1 by J.D. Power 9 times in a row. Plus, total flexibility. You can change your plan anytime. It all adds up to amazing value. See how much you can save at consumercellular.com.
Introducing the ingenious new Upwalker Lite, the safer, more comfortable way to get you up on your feet. From the makers of the award-winning original Upwalker, the Upwalker Lite is now 34% lighter, much easier to maneuver, and features a new lower price.
The Upwalker is revolutionary. A walker has the patient in the hunched over position, whereas when you have the Upwalker, you're able to walk upright because your balance is there.
It takes a lot of pressure off my back and my knees and my ankles. There's a lot less pain, so it makes me want to get out.
My Upwalker Lite allows me to shop, to go to dinner, to see my grandkids. I have freedom again.
Just call or visit upwalkerlite.com. We have new low prices and affordable easy payment plans. The Upwalker Lite comes fully assembled, features adjustable arms, and is now 34% lighter. The Upwalker Lite is easy to turn, so it's perfect for navigating tight spaces indoors and still enjoying more independence outdoors. A clinical study found users of the Upwalker felt safer and more secure, could walk with less pain, and had improved upright posture, resulting in better stamina.
What I hated about my rollator was I was always looking down, but with my Upwalker Lite, I look ahead when I walk, and I feel like I want to go out now.
Call now and get free shipping, plus a free beverage holder, a free backrest, and a free carrying bag. Your Upwalker Lite comes backed by a 30-day money-back guarantee.
With the Upwalker Lite, my kids can sleep at night because I am secure.
Visit upwalkerlite.com or call 800-416-9136. Learn about our easy payment plans. Call 800-416-9136 right now.
We've been talking about it for days. You've seen it all over social media. 2 separate tropical threats coming towards the Gulf Coast. Both Laura and Marco with cones that overlap going towards the Gulf Coast in the next 72 hours. New Orleans certainly getting in on those impacts potentially, and thus you need to be getting ready. Hurricane watch in effect for you tonight. And Chris Bruin is there live for us tonight. Chris, an infamous week, right? The anniversary of Katrina coming up.
And that's still fresh on so many people's minds. I mean, everybody in the country remembers Katrina in the situation here in New Orleans. So a lot has been learned, and there's been a lot of investment in the prevention. Of course.
Chris Bruin's microphone there and getting his signal from the field. We'll get back to him when we can. But let's talk a little bit more about Marco. Marco's the first of the two threats that's approaching the Gulf Coast states. And well, that's why you've got that hurricane watch in New Orleans. So let's start there. New update is coming in within about a half an hour from the National Hurricane Center that will, at a minimum, give us a new position on that center as it continues to move north-northwest at 13. Big blow-up of thunderstorms. It's holding its own, and you can see that blow-up of thunderstorms getting ever closer to the Gulf Coast states. So we're getting there, right? We're on borrowed time now for when this starts to really approach the coastline. And here's a look at that forecast cone. Sometime Monday approaching southeast Louisiana, but the impacts could be there first because we are anticipating this to be a lopsided storm system where that northeast side, the side that approaches the coastline first, really, because of this turn, winds up getting there before the center. So don't assume that you won't be, say, raining in New Orleans, even though the center doesn't approach until Monday afternoon. This could happen much sooner than that. That is why we've got the tropical storm warnings in New Orleans, including Lake Pontchartrain, all the way over through Morgan City, Baton Rouge, Lafayette, tropical storm watches around that area. And there are indeed hurricane watches and warnings also. A small storm, only a small core of hurricane force winds, but enough potential for those winds to get there. Why are we lopsided? Why is this thing kind of tilted over? It's because we're close to a trough. This is the trough that's been picking up our storm, but it's also been some shear aloft, kind of tilting this over. It's not vertically stacked. That's why we've kind of maxed out our potential of intense strengthening. These storms like high pressure aloft, low winds in the environment around the tropical system in order to truly blossom, and that's not going to be the case. It's just, it hasn't been and it won't be through landfall, and thank goodness, because otherwise this could add the potential to be even stronger. How about the current winds? In the buoys nearby, we've got some gusts to 36 in this buoy, near 30 in this buoy. We've had the Hurricane Hunter aircraft going through that center a couple of times. It's been almost an hour, maybe a little bit more since they passed through that center. They're almost going to come back through again, so we'll see those winds coming back up as that next pass through occurs. And all that data goes into these hurricane models, which have been fairly consistent, saying we'll be on either side of that hurricane status until we get closer to that shear and that starts to really weaken our storm system. So look at the winds that will be approaching the coast through the day Monday and then racing westbound from there. It is, of course, also about the water. Some significant rains in that cluster ahead of our hurricane. Marco is down here, and that moisture is getting in. So a chance for some really heavy rain in a small area, mostly southeast Louisiana. But Dr. Nab is here because it's not the only storm we're watching. The next one in the wings, Dr. Nab, looks like it could be the bigger of the two.
Yeah, I think Laura is going to impact more people with more hazards than will Marco. But Marco has its own hazards, as you just showed, and it complicates the preparations for Laura, which is a tropical storm. But don't let that cause you to discount what it could become. And in fact, if it stays on the south side of Cuba and gets over water sooner than if it were to go right along Cuba, then it could strengthen even sooner than when it gets to the Gulf of Mexico. But when it gets there, it seems like it's almost a certainty that it will strengthen to a hurricane because of the very, very warm waters that are exceeding 90 degrees in some spots and that are warmer than average for this time of year. Here are some of the U.S. Weather Service model tracks that show you some of the possibilities. Now, the environment is going to be so much different than what Marco's dealing with the sheer upper level high pressure dominating the West Atlantic and over Cuba, and that will continue to be the case. Watch the traveling white lines as they take up residence over the Gulf and Florida. That means weak wind shear for Laura as it goes over those warm waters. Now, that European track is kind of far to the east, but there are a lot of possibilities that are farther to the west, both inside and outside of the cone. Houston, New Orleans, both sides of those cities and in between. And the Hurricane Center's cone shows you that there could be some impacts both inside and outside of the cone. And we've got both cones to deal with. It's Marco first, a short break, and then big Laura.
At Safelite, we're committed to taking care of you and your car.
We'll fix it right with no contact service you can trust.
So if you have auto glass damage, stay safe with Safelite.
Safelite Repair, Safelite Replace.
Daddy, what's that big moving house thing?
It's a motorhome, Junior. Modern invention.
Modern invention? We carried our homes with us since, like, forever.
Yeah, but humans have Geico to protect them. Something goes wrong, they're covered. What do we have?
What could go wrong? Ooh, a feather.
A feather? Duck, Junior!
That's no duck, Daddy. That's a vulture.
Geico for RVs. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Do you know why I love Coffee Mate? Well, it's triple churn and 2 times richer than milk for one perfect cup of coffee. Think I love Coffee Mate too much? No, impossible. Coffee Mate. Coffee's perfect mate.
We know to wash our hands. Here's a reminder from Cetaphil to wash your face, too. Dermatologist recommended Cetaphil washes away germs in 20 seconds and leaves skin moisturized and healthy. Show your sensitive skin some love with Cetaphil.
Kids can change minds. They can even change the world around us. Packed with protein plus 21 vitamins and minerals, we nourish them with Carnation Breakfast Essentials. Because today could change everything.
Ever notice how stiff clothes can feel rough on your skin? For softer clothes that are gentle on your skin, try Downy Free and Gentle. Downy will soften your clothes without dyes or perfumes. The towel washed with Downy is softer and gentler on your skin. Try Downy Free and Gentle.
If you have postmenopausal osteoporosis and a high risk for fracture, now might not be the best time to ask yourself, are my bones strong? Life's full of make or break moments. That's why it's so important to help reduce your risk of fracture. With Prolia. Only Prolia is proven to help strengthen and protect bones from fracture with 1 shot every 6 months.
Do not take Prolia if you have low blood calcium, are pregnant, are allergic to it, or take Xgeva. Serious allergic reactions like low blood pressure, trouble breathing, throat tightness, face, lip, or tongue swelling, rash, itching, or hives have happened. Tell your doctor about dental problems, as severe jawbone problems may happen, or new or unusual pain in your hip, groin, or thigh, as unusual thigh bone fractures have occurred. Speak to your doctor before stopping, skipping, or delaying Prolia, as spine and other bone fractures have occurred. Prolia can cause serious side effects like low blood calcium, serious infections, which could need hospitalization, skin problems, and severe bone, joint, or muscle pain.
Are you ready? Ask your doctor about Prolia. FDA approved for 10 years.
I recently took a road trip to Greensville to attend a chili cook-off. Rough roads all the way down. I drove there on these Cooper Discoverer and Duramax tires. Without them, we might never know the winning bean-to-meat ratio of a good chili. So go with the Coopers. Cooper!
This is the time when everyone needs to begin preparing for these oncoming hurricanes. Remember, your life is far more valuable than your property. Your property can be replaced, your life cannot.
When they say evacuate, that means leave.
My biggest fear this year is that we get in a situation where you literally got 2 hurricanes that are threatening the United States that come in very close to each other. Maybe a couple of days, maybe 3-4 days. But that's my biggest fear about the 2020 season.
And here we are with 2 cones that are really on top of each other, coming in a couple of days apart from each other. Now, I would probably say that this is not the worst case scenario that Jim was talking about, with 2 major hurricanes coming in near each other, right? Or a state and away, and then all of the evacuation exit points being completely clogged. But this is problematic enough, right? If you are evacuating, if you're told to evacuate, I know some for Marco have already been told to do so, try to go to a friend's or a family's house that's respecting the virus that's going on right now, the way that you are, and so you don't have to wind up in a big community shelter surrounded by other people and with all the, the protective equipment that you would need to then have on throughout the duration of your evacuation. It's not as comfortable as being at a friend's or family's house, for sure. But again, we've got both Marco and Laura coming in. Both will have a wind event to some degree. Laura looks like to be the bigger one. They'll both have at least some rain over a very soggy southeast Louisiana. And so one storm is enough to cause devastating flooding, but what would two do? What would two in such a short time do? Let's go to hurricane expert Dr. Rick Knabb for in-depth analysis on where the models are suggesting the worst of the rains for both events will go.
Yeah, and Mark, when I think of what's the most important single piece of information when it comes to a hurricane forecast, and I think it's the track, because if you don't know where it's going to go, you don't know where the impacts are going to be. And as we compare the rainfall footprints of Marco and Laura, and you know, that's highly track dependent. So in some scenarios, we might get some of you getting rain from both. Some of you might get rain from one and not the other, but to the extent we get overlap of all of this tropical moisture coming to the same part of the country, that brings forth a tremendous inland flood threat from heavy rainfall. So let's just put it all together and look out over the next week, the global model projections that incorporate both Marco and Laura. Now here's the European model out the next 7 days, and it shows the southeast Louisiana footprint that is a combination of Marco and Laura, and then this big swath of heavy rainfall, in some spots over a foot. That is the Euro's depiction of what Laura could bring. Could be a very significant inland event, but that's for a track that's that far to the east. Look at the GFS. There's the Marco rainfall footprint, but then here's what it does as a result of Laura. So in this particular case, you don't get a whole lot of overlap between the rainfall from the two storms, but I think both of them are telling the story that Laura has the greater potential to produce heavy rainfall and inland flooding for more of you. But that doesn't mean we don't have a flood problem from rainfall. From Marco, we already have the flash flood watch for Baton Rouge, New Orleans, Gulfport, and Mobile. And if you look just through Tuesday morning, again, southeast Louisiana, the bullseye for the greatest chance of heaviest rain. Now, hopefully the greatest populations will avoid the heaviest rainfall, but the threat is still there, and we don't know who's exactly going to get it. So the possibility is there that we have flood problems on the roads just because of Marco, but those will be lessened the farther south it goes and the weaker it gets. We've got to get that shear to knock Marco flat, right, to lessen its wind, surge, and rainfall effects. Now, here's a depiction of one of the models of the future radar that shows Marco's rainfall for the northern Gulf Coast. And you can see there's some locally heavy rainfall in there, but then this is a much different beast coming in later on. So if we just had Laura to deal with, Mark, then I think we would have a big-time inland rainfall event to contend with already. But when you add the rains of Marco ahead of what Laura's going to drop, it could add to the flooding potential in some spots, and I think even more concerning is it could complicate or impede the preparations for Laura if you have water on the roads as a result of Marco.
Yeah, so let's keep talking about the water effects, right? Because water is far and away the biggest killer from these tropical systems. Everyone focuses on the wind. You know, what category is the hurricane going to be at the time? Wind matters up to a certain point, right? Major hurricanes, you don't want to be outside in the wind.
Right.
But the storm surge component, does Marco come in and raise that water level, and then, you know, Laura has a higher base to start from for its storm surge? You've talked about kind of the impacts from the rain going on top of the same areas and causing more flooding on top of a very soggy summer. I mean, I think people are really interested on what these two storms coming in together, more or less, does to the water impacts.
All right. Well, I think Marco will have a slight impact on the water levels of Laura in that you're going to have this onshore push. Even for a weak tropical storm, you can have some onshore push, and the Gulf of Mexico waters will be generally a little bit higher. But with the weakening of Marco that's anticipated, I think its storm surge effects will have mostly diminished by the time Laura comes calling. And then I think Laura's storm surge is going to make Marco's storm surge look somewhat pale by comparison. I think we're going to have a much larger evacuation concern for Laura. But again, the water that could be on the roads from the heavy rainfall as a result of not Laura, but Marco. Again, if you run this radar loop, the future radar, Marco could dump some locally heavy rains here over the next day or day and a half, and that could leave some water on the roads that makes it harder for people to evacuate in advance of Laura or to go out and get their supplies. So I think that's the biggest problem, is water on the roads from rainfall or just bad weather that impedes preparations for Laura.
And that's a big unknown, right? We got to wait until Marco is coming through to know which roads may be closed for the next storm. And that's why we are staying with you. We're staying live through the night as we track both of these storms, Marco and then Laura, affecting the Gulf Coast.
At Physicians Mutual, we know that planning for retirement can feel scary.
Heard you're retiring soon. My husband just retired. Figuring out how to stay covered was a real doozy.
Hey, look, Leonard's premiums are showing.
He doesn't even have a Medigap.
What can I say to him?
Anyways, we found Physicians Mutual. They made it really easy.
I'll give him a call. Retire with confidence. We'll listen and find you the coverage you need.
Physicians Mutual, Physicians Mutual.
When you've got auto glass damage, Safe Flight can come to you.
And you'll get a text when we're on our way.
Just leave your keys on the dash, and we'll replace your windshield with safe, no-contact service. Schedule at safelight.com.
Safe Light Repair, Safe Light Replace.
Are you packed yet? Our flight is early tomorrow, and it's a long flight, too. Once we get there, we'll meet up with him.
Let her go.
Oh, hello. Did you know that Coffee Mate is triple churn and 2 times richer than milk for one perfect cup of coffee? How do I know so much about Coffee Mate? I've had a cup or 200. Coffee Mate. Coffee's perfect mate.
When it comes to parenting, you're a pro. You know your kid doesn't step around puddles. And you know cheap, leaky diapers are an amateur move. You need Love's Pro Level leak protection. Love's. Parent like a pro.
We got a Subaru to give him some adventure, to reconnect and be together. And once we did that, we realized his greatest adventure is just beginning.
Welcome to the most adventurous Outback ever. The all-new 2020 Subaru Outback. Go where love takes you.
Get 0% APR financing for 63 months on select models during the Subaru A Lot to Love event.
With Spectrum Mobile, what you see is what you get. That means no added taxes or fees. Get an unlimited data plan for just $45 a month per line. That includes unlimited talk and text, too. You can save up to 40% on your mobile bill, and there are no contracts. Experience the fastest overall speeds and the most reliable mobile service coast to coast with Spectrum Mobile. Now the fastest growing mobile provider in the nation. Learn more at spectrummobile.com.
Mama, Mama.
Why do I keep falling asleep during the day? What's making me so tired? I kept asking myself these questions. It felt like I was more than tired. Then I was diagnosed with narcolepsy. There are 5 major symptoms. I waited too long to take action, but you don't have to. Visit morethantired.com now. Take the Narcolepsy Symptom Screener and find a sleep specialist to share your results. Don't wait. Visit morethantired.com today.
Unbelievable, this is real.
When your cameras roll, our experts react.
Jaw-dropping.
Weather Gone Viral premieres next Sunday at 9 here on the Weather Channel.
Currently in our area, 79 degrees under partly cloudy skies. Tonight, some clouds. A stray shower or thunderstorm is possible. Low 76. Monday, thunderstorms developing in the afternoon. High 90. Chance of rain 50%. Monday night, a few clouds. Low 77. Winds west-southwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Here's our 7-day outlook.
We have a brand new advisory, a full update, new track and intensity forecast on Tropical Storm Laura and its maximum sustained winds, despite the fact that it is centered near the coast of southeastern Cuba, have edged up a little bit to 65 miles per hour. Land interaction is the only thing keeping the intensity as low as it is right now, and it is still anticipated to become a hurricane and possibly a major hurricane over the Gulf of Mexico. Now, one thing that'll be interesting to see over the next day or so as it moves near or along or just south of the southern coast of Cuba is how much does that center of circulation spend its time over land versus over water, because a significant amount of time over water, like right in there, it could maintain its strength longer or maybe even strengthen during that time period. More time over the spine of Cuba would maybe keep its intensity down. But I think it's just a matter of time, because it's only going to be about a day over Cuba, because that fast motion of 21 miles an hour means that it is going to get into the Gulf of Mexico pretty quickly. But we had at Guantanamo Bay a little while ago gusts around 60 miles an hour, a sustained wind around 60 miles an hour, gusts over 70, and that was part of the reasoning for why they upped the intensity to 65 miles an hour. But look at also the very intense convection between southeast Cuba and in Jamaica, and I'm very concerned about the potential for life-threatening floods from heavy rain in Jamaica and in Cuba as this moves along. It's not like a tropical storm isn't life-threatening. It definitely is. Tropical storm warning for all of Cuba. Now, there is one change to the watches and warnings here at 11 p.m. Eastern Time, is that a tropical storm warning has been issued for the dry Tortugas, that's west of Key West. The tropical storm watch, everything else remains the same. No other watches and warnings for the Gulf associated with Laura just yet, but that's just a matter of time. Here's the updated track and intensity forecast. So this point would be valid Wednesday evening, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, but there's a lot of caveats associated with that forecast and that intensity. Number one is that, and I'll show you in a moment, that there are a lot of model tracks both inside and outside of this cone. So I don't want anybody to be looking at this going, okay, I'm outside of the cone in Houston and westward. I'm outside of the cone in New Orleans, so I don't have any problems. Don't make that mistake. This cone could change, and there's a tremendous amount of model spread. And then with regard to the intensity, there's a lot of spread in the model forecast of how strong this will get. And again, a lot of it depends on how strong it is when it emerges from Cuba. So it is entirely possible, even though this forecast doesn't come right out and scream major hurricane, only 10 miles an hour stronger, and we'd have a Cat 3. So we have to be preparing for the possibility of a major hurricane coming ashore in the Wednesday time frame because of the warm waters and the weak wind shear. Look at that really, really warm water. These are the U.S. model tracks. You can see the spread, some of them over by New Orleans, but also you've got the possibility of the European model being correct with something farther to the east. And then finally, if you look at all the model tracks from the European, and the Hurricane Center said this again at 11 p.m., this track scenario is widespread, Mark. So we've got a lot of people in Texas, Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi that could get a direct hit from Laura. And we've got updated information on Marco right now as well.
Yeah, the new advisory, the 11 o'clock Eastern, 10 o'clock Central advisory is in. And a big change here is that the shear is starting to bring us that demise. Let's hope that trend continues over the next several hours. Notice the symbol change. Now tropical storm Marco moving through the northern Gulf of Mexico. Here's some of the latest stats. We're now 185 miles south-southeast of the mouth of the Mississippi. So there's that, corridor that we're watching for. We're still moving in that direction off to the north-northwest at 12, just a little bit slower. That turn to due west certainly has not occurred yet. That's still in the forecast, and the shear is still in the forecast. You can see that shear right now because look at where our center is. That is the point just issued from the National Hurricane Center all of the thunderstorm activity is north of there, and that is because of the strong winds that are cranking across the Gulf from southwest to northeast. So all the storms are being pushed in that direction. That tilted over appearance continues. That is starting a weakening trend as well. Where do we go from here? Let's take a look at that new forecast track. This is newly issued as well as of that 10 o'clock Central Time advisory, calling for that 70-mile-per-hour wind speed to continue all the way through Monday evening. They're at least hinting that there could be some more weakening, but overall keeping that 70-mile-per-hour range. Then a fast demise as we work our ways either just off the coast or just over the coast. The winds are going to be weakening no matter what, and that is because of that shear that's nearby. Land interaction will help that as well, but also the shear component. So some big changes right now. Forecast to stay as a tropical storm as opposed to a hurricane. There still will be some storm surge with this. There will still be a rain threat with this, and it's just loading the deck for what could be the larger of the two storms in Laura that's still approaching. So this is a rare threat moving through the Gulf of Mexico, and our live team coverage is going to continue as we follow that dual threat working its way through the Gulf. Two different storms, two different cones that we are following here moving through the northern Gulf. Again, Marco first, Laura second, and Laura already organizing. Details coming up.
Tums versus mozzarella stick.
When heartburn hits, fight back fast with Tums Chewy Bites. Beat heartburn fast. Tums Chewy Bites.
I didn't order a pizza.
I know, but that Parker promo saved me so much on my insurance. Brought you a little something special.
Parker, State Farm offers everyone surprisingly great rates.
You're the man.
And you want the real deal? Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
All right, I brought in Ensure Max Protein to give you the protein you need with less of the sugar you don't. I'll take that.
30 grams of protein and 1 gram of sugar. Ensure Max Protein with nutrients to support immune health.
When you've got auto glass damage, Safe Flight can come to you.
And you'll get a text when we're on our way.
Just leave your keys on the dash, and we'll replace your windshield with safe, no-contact service.
Schedule at safelight.com.
Safe Light Repair, Safe Light Replace.
Whether holding down the fort or bouncing back to school, childhood is always in session. So keep feeding us right with Sun-Made snacks. Just like when you were a kid. Delicious, made with whole fruit. Sun-Made.
This summer, we've all got miles to make up. Miles to the job site, to the campsite, and anything else we set our sights on. Miles back to those who can make this summer mean more than ever. We can help you get the most out of those miles during the Ram Summer Clearance Event.
Right now, get 0% financing for 72 months on the 2020 Ram 1500. Go to ram.com to shop and buy today.
It takes a relentless attention to detail, a passion to protect people from the elements. But most of all, it takes a commitment to comfort in any conditions. At the Weather Channel, our gear means everything. And whatever the weather, you'll find us there, proudly wearing Land's End. Because Land's End stands for quality in everything they make, so we know they can stand behind us. The official outfitter of the Weather Channel is Land's End. Let's get comfy everywhere.
Do you know why I love Coffee Mate? Well, it's triple churn and 2 times richer than milk for 1 perfect cup of coffee. Think I love Coffee Mate too much? No, impossible.
Coffee Mate. Coffee's perfect mate.
Tide Power Pods one-up the cleaning power of liquid.
Can it one-up spaghetti night?
It sure can.
Really?
Can it one-up breakfast in bed?
Yeah, for sure.
Thanks, boys. What about that?
Yep.
It can?
Yeah, even that.
I would very much like to see that.
Me too.
Introducing Tide Power Pods. One up the toughest stains with 50% more cleaning power than liquid detergent. Any further questions?
Nope.
One up the power of liquid with Tide Power Pods.
We are watching 2 separate tropical systems, Tropical Storm Marco and Tropical Storm Laura. Both could still be hurricanes as they approach the Gulf of Mexico. This is a rare event, right? Two different storms overlaid on top of each other. Landfalls for both expected within the next 72 hours. I'm Storm Specialist Mark Elliott. A lot to walk through tonight, including the newest updates from the National Hurricane Center that are just in as we watch both Marco and Laura. So to track it all, we've got meteorologist Julie Martin in the lab tonight. Hurricane expert Dr. Rick Knabb is here as well. And with those new advisories in, want to get right into the latest information. Let's talk about Marco first, because that is the first impact for those of you along the Gulf Coast. Now, one of the big changes, if you're just tuning in for that 10 o'clock Central Time, 11 o'clock Eastern Time advisory, tropical storm Marco as opposed to hurricane. It's not far from hurricane status, 70-mile-per-hour top wind speed, and the National Hurricane Center is giving it at least a chance of still getting into that hurricane threshold. Maybe not the most likely scenario to get back to a hurricane, but it only had a small window without the shear earlier when it really organized and got to hurricane status. So they're saying, okay, if that shear is just a little bit less for a small window, a hurricane is still possible. Official forecast points here, Monday evening, 70-mile-per-hour tropical storm approaching that southeast side of Louisiana coastline, continuing to move west and losing that wind speed. Let's talk about the watches and warnings that have been in play. Tropical storm warnings over interior sections, tropical storm watches, Mobile back through Macomb on the Mississippi side. The farther east you get, it's going to be hard to get a lot of that tropical storm force wind because the storm's going to be curling away from you, but it's also sheared and kind of tilted in that direction. So that's the balancing act that's going on. A little bit of a change to some of the hurricane watches that are put in place, trimmed back a little bit as of the 10 o'clock Central Time advisory, but still hurricane warnings up towards the southeast Louisiana coast. And that's because the National Hurricane Center is still saying, hey, there's a window. There's a small chance that we could get back that 5 miles per hour that was just removed and still have a hurricane on our hands. There's very little difference between a very strong tropical storm wind and a very weak hurricane wind. What's a couple of miles per hour between friends? That's basically, there's got to be a line somewhere. So right now, we're at tropical storm status. It does have an impact on how much water is moved by that, by the winds, moving it, that push to land. The more of that strong wind there is, the more water is moved, and Dr. Knabb is going to talk about that in just a second. So the shear that I was just showing you is set to continue. That tilted over nature is set to continue. That said, we're watching the complex of storms moving north, going towards that buoy 42040. We'll see if the winds start to increase as that kind of complex of thunderstorms makes its way northbound. That wind direction is still kind of east to west, so not really feeling that the true approach of that storm yet, but we'll get there, and we'll see how the winds do start to correspond to that. Hurricane hunters are still there, about to fly through that center again of Marco, and we'll see how the winds jump up, and if they jump up. One of the reasons that the Hurricane Center brought down some of that wind speed was because of the lack of winds being found right now from the hurricane hunters in the storm. Now, Tropical Storm Marco modeling has been consistent, saying, okay, if we're on either side of that hurricane line for the next 24 hours, that seems about right. That's what the models have been suggesting. And so things are going according to script at this point. And then we are anticipating a weakening. How much of that wind are we looking at? Well, very little of the hurricane force winds right now. A slight chance of a hurricane force wind to show up, but overall it's going to be tropical storm force winds that will then affect southeast portions of Louisiana with the 40 to 60 mile per hour wind gust potential looking like the likely side of things. And again, here's another look at that wind approach as we watch the wind speed forecast through the day on Monday into Monday evening. And that's it, right? For New Orleans, you're back to kind of steady state overnight, late on Monday night, early Tuesday morning, because it's a small storm. It gets in, it gets out, and moves on. So no lingering in southeast Louisiana. That was at one point a fear. It doesn't look like it's going to happen that way. This is the current radar picture, well out ahead of the storm, thanks to some of that shear and some of that wind aloft. We've got heavy rain across the Florida Panhandle, not directly associated with our tropical storm Marco, but not connected either, right? That envelope of tropical moisture was increasing because of that tropical wave, turned tropical storm, turned hurricane, back to tropical storm. So that's still part of the story here. But that little circle of rainfall that you see south of Pensacola, that's the true rainfall. And some of that rain is going to come through and towards southeast Louisiana, regardless of the wind threshold. If it's 70, if it's 75, the rain is still going to be there. So the model's still hinting at a small corridor, but a swath of 3 to 5 inches of rain is seen by the European model. A similar note to the USGFS model, maybe 3 to 5 there. Southeast Louisiana, of an outside chance of 5 to 8. If it's over your area, if it rains too fast, you're going to get some flooding. That's something that we do want to watch out for. Also, coupled with that will be a larger area of severe weather potential, including tornadoes, because there will still be that wind shear potential and there will still be that strong wind aloft, which could actually aid the thunderstorm potential for the inland areas. But speaking of the wind moving the water, I want to bring in Dr. Knabb, because I think there is still going to be a storm surge threat here, even with a tropical storm that is reasonably disorganized for its wind threat.
Yeah, I don't want anybody to be taking the change in status to a tropical storm to mean, oh, well, we didn't think a tropical storm could produce much storm surge. Then you're going to be very surprised potentially when that still happens, and that is still a distinct possibility. Here's a couple of reasons why you still need to be concerned about storm surge. Number one is anytime you have a 1,000 millibar low of any kind sitting in this part of the Gulf of Mexico, and you have this kind of onshore flow into this concave-shaped coastline with how shallow the water is in that area, you're going to have a water rise. Okay, but this is not just a typical 1,000 millibar low. It's still a 70-mile-an-hour tropical storm. Now, granted, it's possible it's not that strong anymore. Even the Hurricane Center acknowledges that in their latest advisory. But 50, 60, 70 miles an hour over a swath that's pushing into that vulnerable area is going to cause a water rise. Also, the fact that it has not been completely sheared apart yet means that the wind shear that is tilting it this way, while it stays together, that can tend to drag the low-level center a little bit farther to the north, at least keep it within the cone and maybe put it near the right side of the cone, which could put these land areas here squarely in the strongest onshore push that this system has to offer. No, it's not a hurricane or major hurricane, but tropical storms can still produce a substantial storm surge that can be life-threatening. And it will weaken when it gets out in here, but as long as that holds together, even if it's sheared, it's going to have the distinct possibility of producing life-threatening storm surge, especially in the storm surge warning area. So, big headline at the 11 p.m. advisory, no changes to the storm surge watch and warning. Say it again, storm surge watch and warning have not changed on the 11 p.m. advisory. So that is probably the most important thing to take away, because it is probably the most life-threatening aspect of this system. Now, just to continue to be very clear, New Orleans is not in a storm surge watch or warning. Lake Pontchartrain is, and the coastal areas outside of there are, but not Metro New Orleans, and we still have our storm surge watch on either side of the storm surge warning. So it's still just as important as it was 20 minutes ago to evacuate if told by your local officials. And these are the updated numbers from the Hurricane Center. They haven't changed either, okay? Still the expectation somewhere in this zone from the mouth of Mississippi over to Morgan City of 4 to 6 feet of saltwater flooding above normally dry ground. Not everybody, but somebody in there could get that amount. 3 to 5 feet is somewhere in this zone that includes a place like Shell Beach. Now, we know that the timing of onshore push and the timing of high astronomical tide are critical. We are in between earlier low tide and tomorrow morning's high tide. And with the continued somewhat of an onshore push and making our way toward high astronomical tide tomorrow morning, we have a modest water rise, nearly a foot in the northern Gulf Coast areas. And tomorrow morning is when we'll have high astronomical tide at Shell Beach, and that's when we could have enough of an onshore push to produce some life-threatening storm surge at a place like Shell Beach. So, Julie, we have to keep hoping that the storm weakens and stays farther south, but it's still holding together. Tropical storm notwithstanding it's not a hurricane anymore, but still could bring a lot of hazards to a lot of cities.
Yeah, and we could still be dealing with a high-end tropical storm by the time this does come ashore. A 70-mile-per-hour storm perhaps tomorrow at some point, maybe tomorrow afternoon or evening. So taking a look here at, again, the forecast, we're looking at Monday evening, perhaps still a 70-mile-per-hour, very strong tropical storm coming into southeastern Louisiana. By Tuesday morning, rapidly weakening here down to a 45-mile-per-hour storm, about a 30-mile-per-hour storm by Wednesday when it does reach Texas. So looking at some of that rainfall already coming on shore here in the Florida Panhandle. Also, this orange box here, that's a marine warning out there. So some rough seas and some very heavy rainfall being indicated there. But here along I-10 near Destin, certainly Miramar Beach, Pensacola, getting some of the rain already along with this. This is going to continue to push on shore and being in that right quadrant of the tropical storm of Marco, some of the worst of the weather coming your way. So Pensacola looking at the gusty weather lasting perhaps as late as Tuesday into Wednesday morning. So maybe still dealing with some 30-mile-per-hour gusts, maybe 1 to 2 inches of rainfall coming your way, and some higher totals not out of the question at all here. We could see as much as 3-4 inches of rain, particularly once we get here to the west of Mobile Bay, Gulfport, much of Mississippi here, looking at possibly places like Pass Christian even getting some of that really heavy rainfall right along the shoreline there. So some very low-lying areas here in Mobile, looking at the gusty conditions lasting perhaps through Tuesday morning. All right, we want to check in now with meteorologist Chris Bruin. He is in New Orleans, a city that is under multiple alerts, including a hurricane watch. Chris.
Well, the day is coming to a close here in New Orleans, and hopefully you have all your preparations underway for what's going to be a very busy week. We're looking at an endurance factor here because not only are we threatened by Hurricane Marco, but then Laura later in the week, and we will have repercussions in both storms here in New Orleans, and we're not going to have a lot of time in between, especially with quiet, calm weather, to prepare for what could be a much stronger storm with Laura. So here's what we know right now as far as the forecast goes. We had a calm afternoon all Sunday here in New Orleans, so it was great for those last-minute errands that you had to get to the store, pick up some last-minute supplies, make sure you pack those masks and even just important insurance documents. You never know when you may need them, so hopefully you have your hurricane kit in place. We do know there are some voluntary, even mandatory evacuations, not here in New Orleans, but for some of the parishes to our south that are much more vulnerable. And we know how easily the city is flooded. It comes off the heels on what's been the wettest July on record in New Orleans. We're talking over 15 inches just in the month alone. And for the year, we are at a surplus of nearly a foot above what we would expect. So the area has seen a lot of rain. Water levels are high. And when you talk about a forecast here with Marco and then Laura, we could see a half foot or more of rainfall through the days to come. So flash flooding we think is our biggest factor here, but then you can't forget that wind issue where we could see tropical storm, if not hurricane force winds all throughout the day on Monday into Monday night, Tuesday, and then whatever Laura brings us later in the week.
All right, thank you, Chris Bruin in Louisiana, where that's just one of the states at risk from dealing directly with Laura. Texas as well. Florida Keys are going to be feeling the effects tomorrow. Mississippi, Alabama in play as well. It's a tropical storm right now, a little bit stronger as of the 11 p.m. advisory based on some surface observations in eastern Cuba. And look at that deep convection between Cuba and Jamaica. Very concerned about life-threatening heavy rains and floods in Jamaica. Moving west-northwest quickly at 21 miles an hour, so give it about a day and it will make its way into the Gulf of Mexico. We do have a tropical storm warning now for dry Tortugas, but the watch stays up for the southern portions of the Florida Keys. No other watches or warnings for the continental U.S. just yet. And if it stays just south of the South Shore of Cuba, could get a little stronger a little sooner than we would like. But for the time being, it's not forecast to become a hurricane until getting to the Gulf of Mexico. And then how strong does it become? It's at least possible it gets stronger than forecast here and becomes a major hurricane at that threshold of 115 miles an hour. And it's not just those of you inside the cone. There are models on either side of the cone. So Expect changes in track and intensity. Houston, you're still in the mix. New Orleans, the coastal areas of Alabama, Mississippi, still in the mix. There's so many different paths that the center of circulation could take. We know it's going to round the ridge and turn to the north, but exactly where does that turn occur and how long does it spend over water? When and if does it rapidly intensify? So we've got to watch this hour by hour. It's a very different environment that Laura is in as opposed to Marco, which has this trough, southwesterly shear, but big upper level high pressure over Laura. No wind shear to speak of when it gets into the Gulf of Mexico. And really, it's only land interaction with Cuba that's keeping it down right now. Look at those traveling white lines that make this big this big clockwise pattern, upper level high pressure. There's just not going to be the shear affecting Laura that's been affecting Marco. So it's just a matter of how much can it take advantage of the weak shear and the very warm waters of the Gulf of Mexico, and how much will it strengthen before coming ashore somewhere in the north central or northwestern Gulf of Mexico. And some of the models do explicitly bring it to major hurricane. Other models are weaker. A lot of others are in between. So we've got to get ready by the time Wednesday rolls around for Laura. Between now and then, we've still got Marco to deal with. Stay with us.
Geico's been helping people save money for over 75 years. They've really stood the test of time, much like these majestic Rocky Mountains, which must be named after the Rocky...
That would be Rocky the Flying Squirrel, Mr. Gecko, sir. Obviously.
Come on, Bullwinkle. They're named after...
First President George Rockington.
That doesn't even make any sense, Mr. Winkle.
Geico, over 75 years of savings and service.
COPD makes it hard to breathe. So to breathe better, I started once daily Anoro.
COPD tries to say go this way. I say I'll go my own way with Anoro.
Once Daily Anoro contains 2 medicines called bronchodilators that work together to significantly improve lung function all day and all night. Do not use Anoro if you have asthma. Anoro won't replace rescue inhalers for sudden symptoms and should not be used more than once a day. Tell your doctor if you have a heart condition, high blood pressure, glaucoma, prostate, bladder, or urinary problems. These may worsen with Anoro. Call your doctor if you have worsened breathing, chest pain, mouth or tongue swelling, problems urinating, vision changes, or eye pain while taking Anoro. The most common side effects are sore throat, diarrhea, and pain in the arms and legs.
Ask your doctor about Once Daily Anoro to start treating your COPD.
We're here for you during this challenging time, and always find support at Anoro.com.
At Safelight, we're committed to taking care of you and your car.
We'll fix it right with no contact service you can trust.
So if you have auto glass damage, stay safe with Safelight.
Safelight Repair, Safelight Replace.
Brushing only reaches 25% of your mouth. Listerine cleans virtually 100%, helping to prevent gum disease and bad breath. Never settle for 25%. Always go for 100. Bring out the bold.
There's just nothing better than a plate of Mama's famous pasta. Her recipe, top secret.
Michelina's. Let Mama feed you.
Ever notice how stiff clothes can feel rough on your skin? For softer clothes that are gentle on your skin, try Downy Free and Gentle. Downy will soften your clothes without dyes or perfumes. The towel washed with Downy is softer and gentler on your skin. Try Downy Free and...
Did you help build New York or New Jersey? Did you work in the building trades or military or do industrial or automotive work where you were exposed to asbestos that led to a mesothelioma or lung cancer diagnosis? If so, you are a real hero. And Whiteson Luxembourg wants to speak with you and help achieve justice and compensation.
Call 1-888-411-LAWS. That's 1-888-411-LAWS.
Guys come in all shapes and sizes. There is no normal for everyone, but there is a normal for you. If, like thousands of other guys, you find that your normal isn't so normal anymore, it could be an addressable medical condition called Peyronie's disease, or PD. A curve with a bump that bothers you isn't normal and should be checked out by a urologist, because you don't have to accept this as your new normal. Find a urologist at learnaboutpd.com.
Unbelievable feel this is real.
When your cameras roll, our experts react.
Jaw-dropping.
Weather Gone Viral premieres next Sunday at 9 here on the Weather Channel.
Currently in our area, 80 degrees under mostly cloudy skies. Tonight, some clouds. A stray shower or thunderstorm is possible. Low 76. Monday, thunderstorms developing in the afternoon. High 90. Chance of rain 50%. Monday night, a few clouds. Low 77. Winds west-southwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Here's our 7-day outlook.
Hurricane season doesn't stop for a pandemic, and neither do we.
Be ready for impacts well beyond the center of the hurricane.
Don't let COVID-19 take your eye off the tropics. This year's threat is more complex and dangerous than ever before.
Remain vigilant, pay close attention to the Weather Channel.
No one can cover this historic hurricane season better than the Weather Channel. Get the information you need to stay safe every day. Storm safety in a pandemic, all season long, right here on the Weather Channel.
All right, we have new video coming in now from Waveland, Mississippi. Ahead of Marco, the waves being kicked up here. Also some squalls pushing through, bringing torrential downpours at times. Of course, this is one of those areas hit extremely hard during Hurricane Katrina. And along the Louisiana coast tonight, traffic heavy with people getting out of the way of these two tropical threats. This video out of Grand Isle, Louisiana. Others here spending the day boarding up. Now, earlier, we talked to one man who's been filling up sandbags today. His advice for everyone after surviving Hurricane Katrina is...
filling up sandbags to help me and my neighbors out to make sure the water gets in our garages or in our houses and things like that. Just trying to prevent any damages to our homes. Just that wind and the water, if we'll be able to hit the pumps or be able to pump the water out fast enough and get it, taken care of so we won't get flooded. That's our main concern. Katrina was a lot of water, extremely a lot of water. I don't want to relive Katrina again. That's one thing I do not want to have to deal with again. Katrina was devastating. Evacuate. When they say evacuate, that means leave. That's what that means. Prepare, get everything together, water, provisions, and leave when they say leave.
He's right. And here's what we know right now. President Trump has approved emergency declarations for Louisiana and Puerto Rico. Louisiana Governor John Bel Edwards says there may be just 12 to 18 hours of Marco rescue operations before Laura hits. He also said prepare to be self-sufficient for at least 72 hours. And if you're staying with friends or relatives, wear masks and practice social distancing. In Haiti and in the Dominican Republic, at least 8 deaths are blamed on Tropical Storm Laura. So I want to get the very latest now from our hurricane expert, Dr. Rick Knabb. And, we have had a downgrade in Marco, a slight downgrade, but still a very strong tropical storm. But I think the bigger storm really just waiting to happen would be Laura.
Yeah, and it's very complicated dealing with Laura when you've got Marco in between. We still have storm surge watches and warnings that haven't changed at 11 p.m. for Marco. So Marco still has its own hazards in its own right, and it's going to be continuing to happen while we know that some of the same areas will be affected by Laura. And it might only be another day or so before watches and warnings go up for the northern Gulf Coast in association with Laura. So let's watch one of the model depictions of how this is going to play out. And, you have enough to deal with when you know that, say, Wednesday or so, the effects of Laura could start affecting the northern Gulf Coast. But between now and then, the winds of Marco, even though it will be weakening, will be affecting the areas of coastal Louisiana. Monday into Tuesday morning. So maybe there's a bit of a break there wind-wise sometime on Tuesday, but not very long because Laura will be strengthening. Its wind field likely will be expanding, and so winds will be on the increase in association with Laura as we get into the latter portion of Tuesday. And then certainly Wednesday, the tracks are all over the place. This is just one of them, but certainly Wednesday will be a much different story when the weather will be going very quickly downhill. Now, Tuesday could also be difficult preparing for Laura because we'll still have at least some rains associated with whatever is left of Marco, and there might not be much of a break in the wet weather during the day on Tuesday, which would be an important prep day for Laura in a typical situation when you have the good weather ahead in the periphery of a hurricane. So there's a lot of reasons why we need to take preparations for Laura as far in advance as possible that Marco will allow. Whatever window of opportunity you get where the weather is cooperative enough, and whenever you get an evacuation instruction from local officials between now and Wednesday, when evacuations for Laura might need to be completed in some spots, you need to evacuate and make your preparations, get them done ASAP, because the bad weather associated with Marco will just slow you down even more. And it could be as soon as Wednesday morning if Laura goes farther to the south and east, but it could be later in the day on Wednesday when winds of tropical storm force first start arriving. So that means a couple things. Means one, that's the time frame by which evacuations and all preparations for Laura need to be done, even though you got Marco in between now and then. And also, it's sometime tomorrow that tropical storm or hurricane watches, more likely hurricane watches, will be going up for some portion of the northern Gulf Coast during the day or the nighttime on Monday, because that'd be 2 days in advance of this arrival time of the winds. And we've got to be getting ready to deal with something that has a bigger impact on more people than Marco will. Laura is going to be a stronger system in all likelihood. More evacuations will be called then for Marco. More of you will be impacted by more significant water and wind than in the case of Marco. And it won't necessarily just be within that cone. There are models that show the possibility of the center going outside of that cone, and it could be stronger than forecast. Could be a major hurricane. So evacuation is something to be really seriously starting to think about, even while you've got to stay safe from Marco. So know your zone, figure out your destination now, and figure out if you could be an evacuation destination for somebody else. Stay safe as Marco affects us over the next couple of days, but get ready for Laura by Wednesday.
Now with Kellogg's Feeding Reading Program, when you buy a box, you can get a free book, turning boxes into books. Over 1 million and counting. Just buy a box and you can get a book and turn your favorite foods into new favorite stories.
I like Liberty Mutual. They get that no two people are alike. And customize your car insurance so you only pay for what you need. What do you think?
I don't see it. Only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Is skincare from around the world better than Olay? Olay Regenerist faced 131 premium products from 12 countries over 10 years. Olay's hydration was unbeaten every time. Face anything.
Find out more at Olay.com.
We got a Subaru to give him some adventure. To reconnect and be together. And once we did that, we realized his greatest adventure is just beginning.
Welcome to the most adventurous Outback ever. The all-new 2020 Subaru Outback. Go where love takes you.
Get 0% APR financing for 63 months on select models during the Subaru A Lot to Love event.
When you need to see up close, do you squint and strain? And without enough light, it's more of a pain. Then you need Mighty Sight, the new LED lighted magnifying eyewear that makes detailed tasks easy to see. Ultra bright and hands-free. Inspired by the eyewear worn by surgeons, Mighty Sight gives you instant 160% magnification and brings prescription labels up close and clear. Look closer. The high-definition optical lenses utilize new magnification technology, while two built-in LEDs provide maximum illumination. With Mighty Sight, you'll see intricate detail with vision as sharp as an eagle. Enjoy pastime hobbies with laser-like clarity or complete DIY projects without any eye strain. No more juggling magnifiers or clumsy flashlights. Mighty Sight fits comfortably over your prescription glasses and are rechargeable, so they're always ready when you are. Perfect for reading, knitting, arts and crafts, and more. Best of all, the LED lights follow your view with pinpoint accuracy, so you won't disturb others around you.
I could never read the tiny print on my vitamins, but now with Mighty Sight, it's as clear as a bell.
Don't give up on detailed tasks, just reach for Mighty Sight. There's nothing like them on the market today. Act now to get your LED magnification eyewear, Mighty Sight, with charging cord for just $19.99. But wait, we'll include this protective carrying case free. And here's a mighty good deal. We'll send you a second pair. Keep one in the nightstand and one in a kitchen drawer. Just pay a separate fee. That's 2 sets for one low price. See what you've been missing and get up close and clear with Mighty Sight. Call now.
To order Mighty Sight, call 1-800-251-9452 or go online at buymightysite.com. Don't delay. Call 1-800-251-9452 or go to buymightysite.com. Order now.
All OTC pain relievers, including Voltaren, have one thing in common. None are proven stronger or more effective against pain than Salonpas Patch Large. There's surprising power in this patch. Salonpas. Dependable, powerful relief.
Oh, hello. Did you know that Coffee Mate is triple churn and 2 times richer than milk for one perfect cup of coffee? How do I know so much about Coffee Mate? I've had a cup or 200. Coffee Mate. Coffee's perfect mate.
We are watching 2 separate storms right now across the Gulf of Mexico. Both Marco and Laura are starting to work their way towards the Gulf of Mexico states. How ready are you going to be, right, when we're watching for these 2 storms to be approaching the northern Gulf, one after another? Gosh, it is just so 2020 of this event to be looking at a map like this. Let's go into the local areas. Our own Chris Bruin is in New Orleans watching everyone preparing tonight. Chris.
A calm and even comfortable August night here in New Orleans, and you even have clear skies. Look at the crescent moon, very fitting. Being over the Crescent City Connection. That's the famous bridge here that crosses over the Mississippi River from the West Bank over into the Central Business District. Really incredible scene if you haven't been here. But not only keeping eyes on the Mississippi River, but we've got a lot of water here. And when you have tropical threats like Marco and Laura, this is a city that is vulnerable. So storm surge warnings are in effect, especially for the coastal regions in southeastern Louisiana. We are under a tropical storm warning. Let's talk about timing and impacts, and we'll start with Marco because we have a little bit more certainty. Also, that's the one that's hitting on Monday, okay? So when you wake up in the morning, it's going to be much more cloudy than what we've been seeing on Sunday. You're going to notice more winds, and winds will be increasing along with squally weather. I think it'll be intermittent the first half of the day and become more widespread and persistent after lunchtime. So the afternoon is really going to be go time here, I think, all across Lake Pontchartrain and really the New Orleans metro area, where we could have wind gusts anywhere from 40 upwards of 50, even 60 plus miles per hour. You're talking down trees potentially, power outages. After July being so wet, the grounds are saturated. That causes the root system to be more vulnerable to falling over. So that's something we're going to be watching. And hopefully you've made preparations in advance, not only for Marco, but for Laura. We still don't know quite what the exact impacts will be here in New Orleans, but we know there will be some. And the concern is there's not going to be a lot of wiggle room in between. So hopefully you have your preparations in place for really the whole week ahead. And hopefully we end up on the weaker end of things here around New Orleans, really the Gulf Coast as a whole, but only time will tell to see what these threats ultimately pose.
Thank you, Chris. And so right now we're watching Tropical Storm Marco. If you're watching earlier today, this was Hurricane Marco. We've lost just a couple of miles per hour off that top wind speed and brought us back down to tropical storm status. This is the current infrared imagery looking down at the cold cloud tops. New flare up of thunderstorms right in here. Again, north and east of that center. That's been the trend. The movement still more north than west eventually a turn to the west is set to occur, that doesn't mean the impacts won't reach you. Look at how the cold cloud tops are approaching, say, Mobile Bay and Pensacola. You may get some of those impacts as we have all that shear coming across the Gulf, kind of turning this on its side. But the official forecast does call for that, that turn to occur, and the center path to go towards southeast Louisiana, still at 70-mile-per-hour winds. After that point, starting to lose that wind speed quite dramatically, because you'll be getting more and more into that trough and into that shear, and just the storm will get ripped apart. That said, there are still tropical storm warnings as well as hurricane watches that are in place, because believe it or not, there is an outside chance of a little bit of strengthening still before the big demise occurs. I think, Dr. Knabb, this is really going to be the smaller impact of the two. Laura looks like it means business.
Yeah, Marco's not going to have zero impact, but I think Laura is going to affect a lot more people with a lot more serious wind and water at the coast and inland. 65-mile-an-hour tropical storm right now near the south coast of eastern Cuba. Look at all that convection between Cuba and Jamaica. It is probably going to spend some time over water here south of Cuba, and then it could get a little stronger than forecast a little bit sooner. But even if it doesn't become a hurricane before getting to the Gulf, over the Gulf, it's almost certainly going to become a hurricane, and maybe even a major hurricane. Now, two ways not to get fooled by what this cone might suggest to you. Number one, don't assume that the center of circulation will stay within that cone. And number two, don't assume that the hurricane won't get stronger than forecast here. It is possible the center will go outside this cone, possible it stays within it. It's also possible it gets to a major hurricane, not just 105 miles an hour shown here. Look at all of these ensemble members, the possible tracks as shown by the European modeling system. You have some tracks inside the cone, several tracks outside the cone, and then look at these models. Some of the models show a Cat 1 or 2 hurricane, but some models explicitly show a Category 3 hurricane. So we've got until about Wednesday to get ready for Laura while we deal with Marco.
I am Robert Strickler. I've been involved in communications in the media for 45 years. I've been taking Prevagen on a regular basis for at least 8 years. For me, the greatest benefit over the years has been that Prevagen seems to help me recall things and also think more clearly. And I enthusiastically recommend Prevagen. It has helped me an awful lot.
Prevagen, healthier brain, better life. This summer, we've all got miles to make up. Miles to the job site, to the campsite, and anything else we set our sights on. Miles back to those who can make this summer mean more than ever. We can help you get the most out of those miles during the Ram Summer Clearance Event.
Right now, get $7,300 in total values on the 2020 Ram 1500. Shop and buy online at ram.com.
Skin tags are embarrassing, uncomfortable, and pop up everywhere. Freezing them off can be painful and expensive. Well, now you can put an end to those ugly skin tags and remove them at home with Hempvana N-Tag, the revolutionary skin tag remover that's enriched with hemp seed oil for its moisturizing properties and gives you these amazing results. Simply brush it on and the skin tags fade away and fall off and stay off.
I literally had 20 skin tags on my neck. It was tough to shave even, but N-Tag put an end to those and I was so happy.
The secret? Hempvana N-Tag's unique formulation goes to work drying out the lesion and it falls off while the surrounding area stays nice and smooth.
My skin tags are gone and it makes me feel so much more confident. I just feel like nobody's staring at me anymore.
N-Tag works for all skin types and is gentle enough for sensitive areas including your face and neck. And Hempvana N-Tag is enriched with hemp seed oil for added moisture, plus all natural turmeric and aloe.
I went to a dermatologist. They wanted to charge me $75 to get rid of each skin tag. I found N-Tag, and for pennies, I got my skin tags removed and I saved the money.
Hempana is the #1 hemp brand in America and the brand you can trust. So stop living with ugly, embarrassing skin tags. Call or log on now and you'll get Hempana in tag with over 50 applications for the low price of only $29.99. But when you order now, you can double the offer. Just pay a separate fee. And we're so sure N-Tag will put an end to your skin tags, we'll give you a full money-back guarantee. We'll even pay return shipping. This TV-only special offer is not available on Amazon. That's 2 N-Tags with money-back guarantee. And remember, this offer is not available on Amazon. Order now.
Call 1-800-914-1134. That's 1-800-914-1134. Call or visit getntag.com. So call 1-800-914-1134 now.
This is the time when everyone needs to begin preparing for these oncoming hurricanes. Remember, your life is far more valuable than your property. Your property can be replaced, your life cannot.
When they say evacuate, that means leave.
My biggest fear this year is that we get in a situation where you've literally got 2 hurricanes that are threatening the United States that come in very close to each other. Maybe a couple of days, maybe 3-4 days. But that's my biggest fear about the 2020 season.
A couple of days apart. I don't think he meant a couple of miles apart as well, as we've been watching 2 potential hurricanes, one now more likely to be a tropical storm in Marco, but Laura could be a significant hurricane, and both will be impacting Louisiana, at least to some degree, within a day and a half of each other. Pretty incredible to see a map like this with both tracks overlaid the way they are. Here's the thing. No matter how slow the winds get, there's still going to be a tropical moisture plume bringing rain. And then Laura certainly will bring a swath of heavy rainfall. So one is enough to cause flooding. But what happens when there's 2 in a row like this, especially considering how wet summer has been? Want to bring in hurricane expert Dr. Rick Knabb for some in-depth analysis on this. We've got a very high base level, right? I mean, southeast Louisiana on either side of 10 inches in the surplus just for summer. There's not a lot of room for a heavy rain-producing tropical system.
No, the southeastern part of the country in general has had a very wet 2020. So we've always feared what would be the impacts of one wet tropical system, never mind multiple ones. And so this pattern is going to bring tremendous amounts of tropical moisture into the same areas. Now, the big question is how many of you are going to get hit by the rains of both systems. Well, let's take a look at some of the model depictions here. This is the European model over the next 7 days that incorporates both Marco and Laura. It has a rainfall footprint from Marco and Laura in southeast Louisiana, but this is all Laura, and this is over an area that has gotten way too much rain during the hurricane season so far. But that's very track dependent. If the GFS exact model run is correct, it'd be farther west, and that would bring southeast Texas, southwest Louisiana, Arkansas into the mix more directly. It still has a Marco rainfall footprint, but it keeps Laura and Marco kind of separate there. But we already have a problem over the next day or 2 from locally heavy rains. It could cause flash flooding from Marco in southeast Louisiana, coastal areas of Mississippi, Alabama. Now, again, this is not the level of rainfall that we expect Laura will bring, but it still could be locally several inches, and it could eke up into parts of New Orleans or into Biloxi, depending upon which model you look at and exactly where the rain bands of this disorganized high-end tropical storm end up. But Mark, one thing we can hope for is that Marco weakens and turns left faster. And, I think both of those things could happen concurrently. The faster it gets sheared apart, the farther south it will stay. So, we could catch a break, but at least in this model's eye, there's at least some heavy rainfall that makes it to the coast, and that provides table-setting rains for what lies behind Marco.
And gosh, that is an ominous, to put it lightly, future radar picture with Laura waiting in the wings. So let's talk about that. As you put up the cone there for Laura, Laura, starting to make its way towards the Gulf Coast states. If one storm comes through in Marco and raises the water level a bit, we wind up with some surge from that. Is there enough time between the two to get back to our steady state before the big storm surge event from Laura? Or is there already going to be a continued onshore flow and that keeps the water up and really makes that even worse?
I think there is a little time for the water to mostly come back down, but we have to realize that even as a borderline hurricane tropical storm, that Marco has produced at least the threat and may very well end up realizing life-threatening levels of storm surge. Even as a tropical storm coming in this fashion, we still could have the 3, 4, 5, 6 feet of storm surge flooding above normally dry ground in these areas. And even a relatively weak low or just an extended period of onshore flow for a couple of days, the day before Laura arrives, could set the table throughout most of the northern Gulf for the waters to be a little bit higher than they otherwise would be. But I think, Mark, that the biggest ramification of this preceding Laura is that it could impede actions being taken and people driving around to prepare for Laura. But I think Laura's going to produce significant storm surge even without the help of Marco.
Oh, absolutely. And let's talk Laura a little bit, because I think that is going to be the bigger of the two storms. I think even without knowing exactly where the landfall is going to take place, the part that's pretty certain is that it's going to take that big curl up to the Ohio Valley. How worried are you about severe weather and flash flooding through, say, the Midwest, maybe even the Northeast?
Yeah, when we get into Tuesday and Wednesday, that's when we leave Marco behind and the effects of Laura start coming ashore. So Tuesday night and a Wednesday morning, that's when you could have the beginnings of Laura's flooding starting to happen. But depending upon whether the track goes here or some other track that the various models are projecting, it's going to be a significant inland event. It's not just going to be Texas and Louisiana and maybe Mississippi. It's going to be inland Mississippi, Arkansas, and places like Missouri, Tennessee. I mean, Mark, I think we're going to have significant impacts from Laura in coastal regions, but Laura could end up being one of the more significant inland events of the year, because a major hurricane or something close to it is going to bring tremendous amounts of rainfall and severe weather potential way inland.
And it has been a very soggy spring and summer way inland, and already damaged because of severe weather well inland. So that's an added complexity for later in the week. Remember, two cones that we're watching, both Marco and Laura, for both coastal and inland impacts.
Whether holding down the fort or bouncing back to school, childhood is always in session. So keep feeding us right with Sun-Made snacks. Just like when you were a kid. Delicious, made with whole fruit. Sun-Made.
Domino's knows delivery, so when we asked our team members how to make carry-out more convenient, they had thoughts.
Frisbee it.
That's a thought.
Deliver it.
Even better. Introducing Domino's Carside Delivery. Just pull up, check in online, and we bring your food to you. It's carry-out delivered.
Ta-da!
Did you know Liberty Mutual customizes your car insurance so you only pay for what you need?
I should get a quote.
Do it.
Only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
My psoriatic arthritis pain, I had enough. It's not getting in my way.
Joint pain, swelling, tenderness, much better.
My psoriasis, clearer. Cosentix works on all of this.
4 years and counting.
So watch out.
I got this.
Watch me.
Real people with active psoriatic arthritis are feeling real relief with Cosentix. Cosentix is a different kind of targeted biologic. It treats the multiple symptoms of psoriatic arthritis to help you look and feel better. It even helps stop further joint damage. Don't use if you're allergic to Cosentix. Before starting, get checked for tuberculosis. An increased risk of infections and lowered ability to fight them may occur. Tell your doctor about an infection or symptoms. If your inflammatory bowel disease symptoms develop or worsen, or if you've had a vaccine or plan to. Serious allergic reactions may occur.
I just look and feel better.
I got real relief with Cosentix.
Watch me.
Novartis is committed to supporting our community. Learn more at Cosentix.com.
Yeah. Little choices make a big difference. Like delicious fruits and veggies. However you're healthy. Naked.
With Spectrum Mobile, what you see is what you get. That means no added taxes or fees. Get an unlimited data plan for just $45 a month per line. That includes unlimited talk and text, too. You can save up to 40% on your mobile bill, and there are no contracts. Experience the fastest overall speeds and the most reliable mobile service coast to coast with Spectrum Mobile. Now the fastest growing mobile provider in the nation. Learn more at spectrummobile.com.
Mama.
Why do I keep falling asleep during the day? What's making me so tired? I kept asking myself these questions. It felt like I was more than tired. Then I was diagnosed with narcolepsy. There are 5 major symptoms. I waited too long to take action, but you don't have to. Visit morethantired.com now. Take the narcolepsy symptom screener and find a sleep specialist to share your results. Don't wait. Visit morethantired.com today.
Unbelievable, this is real.
When your cameras roll, our experts react.
Jaw-dropping.
Weather Gone Viral premieres next Sunday at 9 here on the Weather Channel.
Currently in our area, 80 degrees under partly cloudy skies. Tonight, some clouds. A stray shower or thunderstorm is possible. Low 76. Monday, thunderstorms developing in the afternoon. High 90. Chance of rain 50%. Monday night, a few clouds. Low 77. Winds west-southwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Here's our 7-day outlook.
Here in Key West, we're awaiting the tropical squalls from Tropical Storm Laura. It will make its closest approach tomorrow afternoon and tomorrow evening. It's going to move due south of us about midday and then off to the south and west into the Gulf of Mexico later tomorrow night and Tuesday. It's going to be a couple hundred miles away, so we're not expecting tropical storm force winds. That's 39 miles an hour or higher, and that's why the National Hurricane Center did not upgrade the tropical storm watch to a warning at 5 p.m. Eastern. In fact, they dropped the watch from Craig Key north. The upper Keys, Key Largo, no longer under a watch. But here in the middle and lower Keys, we are going to get some gusty winds and some tropical squalls. They'll be coming in from the periphery, the far outer rain bands of Laura, and that could bring in maybe a half an inch to an inch of rain. We're not going to get the kind of rainfall totals we've seen in Hispaniola and over in Cuba tonight. Some spots in the Dominican Republic have picked up 10 inches of rain because we're so far from the center of Laura. The other thing we're concerned with, we do have a coastal flood watch. The south side of the Keys, the wind direction coming this way, that'll push some of the water up. So at high tide between now and late Monday night and Tuesday morning, we could see the water up about 1 to 2 feet higher. It's already a little higher than average. So the bottom line, basically, I'll describe it as a bad beach day here in the Keys on Monday. Tuesday, the sun is back out, still windy, and then we're back to more typical tropical weather for the rest of the week. So they dodged Isaias. Didn't get a raindrop. Tomorrow they get brushed by with Tropical Storm Laura, but we've got a long way to go in the Keys. They well know that this season can go into October and even early November.
Yeah, gosh, this season is young, and we're already on to the L and M names, and there is plenty of time yet for both of these storms and for the season on the whole. So let's talk more about that. Here is Tropical Storm Marco. This update from the National Hurricane Center came in within this past hour. We're still waiting for that turn to be more, robustly off to the west. As that turn occurs, we will start to see a weakening, but it hasn't happened yet. We're still more north than west, bringing this disheveled storm and lopsided storm and the impacts on that north side ever closer to the Gulf Coast. So will you see more impacts in, say, Pensacola than you wind up seeing in New Orleans? That's not out of the question, because some of this rain is knocking on your doorstep, and the more westbound we go, the more shear is going to break apart our storm system. You can see that by looking at the track forecast. Look how quickly the winds spin down as we're looking by Tuesday, 45 miles per hour, then 35 25, then 30. This is going to really kind of spin out very quickly because of that shear. On the other hand, we've got our tropical storm Laura still getting better organized despite interacting with Hispaniola, now interacting with Cuba. Look at the cold cloud tops around Jamaica. That indicates just ridiculous rain. There could be a life-threatening rain event underway, or continuing, I should say, in Jamaica. It's been raining for hours. It's still coming down. It could be getting heavier now. And the forecast is an ominous one. Look at how quickly we ramp up those wind speeds going into the Gulf. 80, then 90, then above 100 miles per hour. It is not out of the question that we could have a major hurricane on our hands. So we have two different systems working through the Gulf of Mexico. Both could have impacts both at the coast and especially for Laura, well inland. So we want to bring back hurricane expert Dr. Rick Knabb again to talk about how this really complicates preparing. One storm could slow down the preparation time for the next one.
Yeah, Mark, isn't one storm complicated enough? I mean, what you just showed with Marco, these threshold storms are real difficult ones to forecast. Is it going to get sheared? Is it going to get steered? What's going to happen? But you know, we still think that tropical storm force winds are going to be arriving sometime tomorrow morning in southeast Louisiana, but you could get them, as Mark was alluding to, along the northern Gulf Coast up closer to Mobile, and Pensacola could get some weather out of this as well. But at some point, it will get sheared apart, and what's left of it will go limping along near the south coast of Louisiana. But we still have to deal with it. Still got tropical storm conditions for many of you in between now and when the weather of Laura will start arriving on Wednesday, so that at the very least complicates things and distracts us, right? So let's take a look at how the models depict the two storms in terms of the wind field. Again, we are expecting Marco to significantly weaken tomorrow, and by tomorrow evening, there could be still some gusty winds along the coast, but not a lot of it going very far inland. So that's one good thing about Marco. It's mostly going to be for those of you near the coast, not going way up into the Mississippi Valley, for example. But there might only be a relatively short time frame sometime on Tuesday after the winds of Marco lessen and before the wind field of Laura starts to expand. So Tuesday is our best shot at having a gap between the two storms, but it might not be all that long. So then by early Wednesday in southeast Louisiana, or later in the day Wednesday farther west, that's when the winds of tropical storm force from Laura are expected to start arriving. And even if Tuesday isn't all that windy, Mark, it might be rainy with what's left of Marco hindering evacuations and preparations. Tuesday is a big prep day for Laura, but what's left of Marco and what's ahead of Laura as it expands could really make it difficult. So we got to get those things done as soon as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. I know there's not a lot of time left in this block, but I do want to have Dr. Knabb think about this. What's the risk for an even stronger Laura than currently is forecast? We'll talk about that when we come right back.
Tums versus mozzarella stick.
When heartburn hits, fight back fast with Tums Chewy Bites. Beat heartburn fast. Tums Chewy Bites.
Water?
Water tastes like water, so we fixed it. Mio.
When you've got auto glass damage, Safe Light can come to you. And you'll get a text when we're on our way.
Just leave your keys on the dash, and we'll replace your windshield with safe, no-contact service.
Schedule at safelight.com.
Safe Light Repair, Safe Light Replace.
If you just want a slice of pizza, you don't buy the whole pie. So if you don't use your cell phone that much, why pay for more than you need? For as low as $20 a month, you can get talk, text, and data from Consumer Cellular with no contract and connections on the nation's largest wireless networks. You'll also receive award-winning support. Consumer Cellular has received the J.D. Power Award for highest customer service again. Plus, AARP members get exclusive discounts. Switch today and get your first month of service free. Call, go online, or find us at Target.
Tara, did you know Geico is now offering an extra 15% credit on car and motorcycle policies?
Wow, okay.
That's 15% on top of what Geico could already save you. So what are you waiting for? Idina Menzel to sing your own theme song?
Tara, Tara, look at her go with a fresh cup of joe, getting down to work early, following her dreams into taxidermy.
It's tax attorney.
I read that wrong, oh yeah!
Geico. Save an extra 15% when you switch by October 7th.
Hi, Phil Swift here. This storm season, you need the entire Flex Seal family of products. Seal up cracks and holes to prevent wind and water from damaging your home. Push Flex Paste deep into wet surfaces to help prevent flood damage. Severe storms can be a nightmare. Now you can patch huge holes to seal up roof leaks. Get the Flex Seal family of products at these fine retailers.
A lung cancer diagnosis can leave you holding your breath. But Bristol-Myers Squibb is working to change things by researching new kinds of medicines that could help you live longer, including options that are chemo-free, because we're committed to bringing new hope into lung cancer care. Learn about our lung cancer research at lungcancerresearch.com.
When it's especially important to keep skin clean, keep reaching for Cetaphil. Recommended by dermatologists. Awarded by Allure. And most of all, loved by skin. Cetaphil, the cleanser sensitive skin loves.
We're staying with you as we are following two separate storms, both tracking through the Gulf of Mexico, at least with time. First, Marco, already knocking on the doorstep of the north central Gulf, and then Laura, which could be a significant storm system. I do not want you to turn your back on that one, people. There could still be slight variations to this track. We're several days away from Laura, but don't assume that it will be the same impacts for Laura as they are for Marco, just because they're going into similar areas. I'm storm specialist Mark Elliott. A lot to walk you through tonight. We have both Marco and Laura going towards the Gulf Coast, and we are tracking it all. That includes with meteorologist Julie Martin joining us from the lab tonight. Our own hurricane expert, Dr. Rick Knabb, is here in the studio with me as well. And so let's go through kind of storm by storm, one at a time. We'll start off with Marco because it's going to have the impacts first. And what you're looking at here are some of the taller cloud tops. The brighter the color, the colder the cloud top, the heavier the rain, but also the center position. Notice how removed it is from that blow up of thunderstorms. That shows us the shear. The shear is continuing. Those strong winds aloft knocking this thing on its side, and storms can only last so long. So this is a tropical storm now as opposed to a hurricane. There's an outside chance it could get back to hurricane status, but it is not the most likely scenario. In fact, it's much more likely that the top winds are lower than 70 miles per hour right now, not higher. So wind may not be the biggest factor with this storm system as it makes eventually a turn towards the west. That turn hasn't started yet, but as soon as it does, it runs into that shear that's in the northern Gulf and starts to rip apart our storm that much faster. So you're hoping for a turn sooner, because that will be the demise of Marco. You'll lose a lot of those cold cloud tops. You'll lose a lot of the wind action. There will still be a corridor of steady tropical rains, and that could be well north and east of the path of the center because of that shear. So because of the fact of some wind that will still be there, we have tropical storm watches and warnings that are still up, as far east as Mobile, but certainly focused in on southern Louisiana. And then you also have the southeast side of Louisiana in hurricane watches because of that, and warnings, because of at least the potential to regain a couple of miles per hour. I don't think that's going to be the most likely scenario, but it's too close for comfort when you're at a 70 mile per hour tropical storm to not at least have that out there and say, okay, it could regain some of that wind. It didn't take long to spin up, so it certainly could do that again. What we will have, we absolutely will have a shear event. It's still out there, right? That trough is there. Area of low pressure in that upper levels is responsible for giving us such a discombobulated storm, right? One that's just not getting those thunderstorms right over the center. that has real impacts for us. It means that the winds won't be necessarily right where the center is. It means the rain won't be right where the center is. We're looking at the buoy reports here, anywhere from a little over 20 to about 35 miles per hour in the gusts right now. The hurricane hunters have been flying through this thing throughout the evening, doing several passes, finding that center and not seeing anything near hurricane force winds at the moment, but they're also on that southwest side. And again, all the action's on the northeast side, so you wouldn't expect to see a lot of wind right now from where they are flying. The hurricane modeling suggests a steady state, right? Somewhere on either side of hurricane force winds for the next day or so, and then a quick demise. And that's the function of timing. How close do we get to that trough that's nearby, that upper level low in that trough to really shear apart our storm and knock it down the rest of the way. The forecast for the winds brings a core of tropical storm force winds in as we go through the next day, and that's about it. Let's talk rains. Rains are also shoved on off towards the northeast side. It's already raining to beat the band across the Florida Panhandle, and there are some coastal alerts that have been there basically all evening as well. Some strong storms just off the coast. Eventually, some of that tropical moisture gets dragged back to the west as our storm is pushed westbound. It'll be losing its wind, but that tropical moisture will still be there. So that's just loading the deck. We're adding to the already soggy summer with another push of rain. It will be raining, okay? We know that. A corridor of 3 to 5 inches of rain for someone, especially in southeast Louisiana. That's the most likely spot as seen by the European model and as seen by the USGFS model. So basically both major global models are picking up on that southeast Louisiana has the best chance of seeing the heaviest rain. What isn't really in this as easily is the severe weather component. I think because of that shear nearby, because of those strong winds aloft, we may actually see some stronger thunderstorms in some of those bands well away from the center. And that means a larger area of severe weather potential than even the heavy rain potential, which obviously if you get a severe thunderstorm, you get a burst of an inch of rain in an hour across this zone. So that could certainly overachieve some of the rains. It also means different winds aloft and the chance for some tornadoes. As is often the case with landfalling tropical systems, I think there will be a tornado risk tomorrow for some of you. Louisiana, Mississippi, maybe Alabama or the western Florida Panhandle. Again, that shear nearby is going to play with this storm in some weird ways. And so be prepared for tornado watches and warnings across the lower Mississippi River Valley. I keep saying this is just part of the story, though, because even as this kind of spins out, it's still wind over the water, and that will always move that water towards land. I think there will be a storm surge potential. So Dr. Nab, I want to bring you back in to talk about that. It's a tropical storm. People could say, we're not going to have any issues at all. But if you're right along the coast, there could still be some. Yeah, and we've already had that happen this year. Remember Cristobal earlier this year and had to have those people rescued on the coast of Mississippi because they didn't think a tropical storm could produce 5-6 feet of storm surge. So let's learn our lesson and continue to heed those instructions from emergency managers because we still have the potential for 4, 5, 6 feet of storm surge on the coast of southeast Louisiana and significant surge on the coast of Mississippi as well. Maybe it's not even a 70-mile-an-hour tropical storm anymore. It might even be a little bit weaker than that. Hurricane Center even said so in their recent advisory. But you still have a significant area of low pressure centered here. The onshore push is aimed right at this concave-shaped area of coastline with the very shallow waters there where Mississippi and Louisiana meet. It's so vulnerable to storm surge. So we still have the distinct possibility of that onshore push, especially tomorrow morning, creating life-threatening storm surge. And also, the fact that the storm is still holding together despite the shear, the middle upper level winds pushing it that way, shearing it and tilting it, is the longer it holds together, the more it's going to want to hug the right-hand side of that cone or maybe even come out of the cone. And so that means the low could get even closer to the coastal areas, the populated areas, than if it was a weaker system sheared apart and limping along farther to the south. So those are some of the reasons why we still have the storm surge watch and warning in effect. The storm surge warning area is where we have
the danger of life-threatening storm surge, 3 feet or greater of saltwater flooding above normally dry ground. We have the watch farther west and for eastern portions of Mississippi. It does not include metropolitan New Orleans. You do have a storm surge watch right along the shoreline of Lake Pontchartrain, but New Orleans protected, in this case certainly, by that risk reduction system built post-Katrina. Laura could pose a much bigger threat, but we'll get to that in a little while. Now, here's where we could have 4 to 6 feet above normally dry ground of saltwater flooding. Morgan City over to the mouth of the Mississippi River, 3 to 5 feet in a place like Shell Beach. Not all of these areas will realize those values, but those are the zones that are at greatest risk. And we were at low tide around dinner time, and we'll be at high tide tomorrow morning around breakfast time. But in between, we've already got some modest water rises over a foot at Dauphin Island. This is above normally dry ground of saltwater flooding right near the coastline. That's because we're no longer in low tide and we're starting to increase the onshore flow on the north side of the tropical storm. And here we go as we head to low tide here, in the overnight period, but high tide tomorrow morning. So as we head toward high tide and as the storm gets closer, that's one of the times, Monday breakfast time, where we could have a maximum of the storm surge flooding. But what we can hope for, Julie, is that shear and the steering eventually takes the weaker system farther offshore into the west. That would lessen all the impacts for the cities that are in play here. But we still have to prepare for this thing holding together.
Yeah, you really do. And, we want to take a closer look now at the timing for Marco. And it does look like we could still be dealing with perhaps a 70-mile-per-hour storm, as Dr. Knabb mentioned, by the time we are into Monday evening here. And the storm moves along the Louisiana coast here over toward Texas. So it will rapidly weaken once it does interact with land. Nonetheless, still could be dealing with a high-end tropical storm. Not out of the realm of possibility here. And the storm surge, the wind, the heavy rainfall, the flooding, it's all in play at this point. Right now, already getting some of that moisture onshore, that tropical moisture. Also, marine warning here issued in orange. It's been sitting there pretty much all evening long. So some rough waters there off the Florida coast. And in and around the Florida Panhandle, we're getting plenty of that rain coming down here from Destin to Pensacola right now, all along I-10, continuing to see a steady flow of tropical rain from Marco. So Pensacola, here's a look at your timing. We do have those impacts being felt probably throughout the day tomorrow and tomorrow evening, maybe all the way into as late as Wednesday morning with the gusty conditions and some of those squalls coming in as well. We want to check in, though, with meteorologist Chris Bruin. He is in New Orleans, a city that's now under multiple alerts, including a hurricane watch.
Well, the day is coming to a close here in New Orleans, and hopefully you have all your preparations underway for what's going to be a very busy week. We're looking at an endurance factor here because not only are we threatened by Hurricane Marco, but then Laura later in the week, and we will have repercussions in both storms here in New Orleans. And we're not going to have a lot of time in between, especially with quiet, calm weather, to prepare for what could be a much stronger storm with Laura. So here's what we know right now as far as the forecast goes. We had a calm afternoon all Sunday here in New Orleans, so it was great for those last-minute errands that you had to get to the store, pick up some last-minute supplies, make sure you pack those masks and even just important insurance documents. You never know when you may need them. So hopefully you have your hurricane kit in place. We do know there are some voluntary, even mandatory evacuations, not here in New Orleans, but for some of the parishes to our south that are much more vulnerable. And we know how easily the city is flooded. It comes off the heels on what's been the wettest July on record in New Orleans. We're talking over 15 inches just in the month alone. And for the year, we are at a surplus of nearly a foot above what we would expect. So the area has seen a lot of rain. Water levels are high. And when you talk about a forecast here with Marco and then Laura, we could see a half foot or more of rainfall through the days to come. So flash flooding we think is our biggest factor here, but then you can't forget that wind issue where we could see tropical storm, if not hurricane force winds all throughout the day on Monday into Monday night, Tuesday, and then whatever Laura brings us later in the week.
Our Chris Bruin in New Orleans, thank you so much. New Orleans is just one of the many metro areas and communities at risk from potentially even a direct hit from Laura as we get to the middle part of the upcoming week. It's a tropical storm right now, the center of circulation very near the south coast of eastern Cuba. Look at those deep thunderstorms, the cold cloud tops between Cuba and Jamaica. Very concerned about heavy rainfall and flooding in Jamaica, as is the case all up and down Cuba as this moves westward very quickly at 21 miles an hour. It's only land interaction, really, that is keeping this from being stronger. It's even a possibility it gets to become a hurricane before getting to the Gulf of Mexico if it spends enough time south of Cuba over those warm waters. But once it gets into the Gulf, it's almost a certainty that it becomes a hurricane and maybe even a major hurricane. So there's a lot of things that this cone doesn't tell you. Number one thing it doesn't tell you is that you don't have to be in the cone to be among the possible areas where the center of circulation could end up going directly. Okay, I'll show you those models in a little bit. The other thing the cone doesn't tell you is, look at the time frame for when the center of circulation might come ashore on the exact forecast. That would be, say, 8 p.m. Wednesday, somewhere Texas, Louisiana. But it could be earlier than that the winds of tropical storm force first start arriving. Could be as early as Wednesday morning if it goes to southeast Louisiana. Could be Wednesday afternoon in southeast Texas. So it's going to be earlier in the day on Wednesday when conditions are going downhill. And it could, if the system expands or speeds up, could even be as early as late Tuesday night when the winds of tropical storm force start arriving on the northern Gulf Coast. Now, here are those models showing you both inside the cone and outside the cone where the center of circulation could go. Don't be surprised if there are changes in that cone, and some of you who are not in it right now could end up getting significant wind and water impacts. Also, that cone does not tell you that it's possible, very distinct possibility, that this becomes a major hurricane with max winds of at least 115 miles an hour. That's what one of the dynamical models is showing. Hurricane Center's been talking about that in their advisory. One of the big components here is how strong is it once it comes off of Cuba. But we have to be dealing with the distinct possibility of having a major hurricane affecting the northern or northwestern Gulf Coast. There'll be a lot more people told to evacuate for Laura than for Marco, Mark. But Marco is not without its hazards.
No, not at all. We told you as landfall gets closer, the severe weather threat starts to ramp up. We're now looking off the Florida coast. Here's Tallahassee, here's St. Mark's and the Lighthouse. Due south of there, you got a big complex of thunderstorms likely producing a waterspout right now. Right in here, we can take a look at the motion of the raindrops and look at that couplet right there. As this continues to move north, will we need tornado watches and warnings? Potentially. We'll watch that carefully.
Is skincare from around the world better than Olay? Olay Regenerist faced 131 premium products from 12 countries over 10 years. Olay's hydration was unbeaten every time. Face anything. Find out more at Olay.com.
Jake from State Farm. I can't thank you enough for getting me the Serena savings on my insurance. Can I get you 10 free minutes in the broth bath?
Serena, with State Farm, everyone's offered surprisingly great rates.
Yeah, sure. How about a complimentary wet moss wrap?
Here's the deal. These savings are for everyone.
Seriously? She's just jealous.
When you want the real deal, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
This summer, we've all got miles to make up. Miles to the job site, to the campsite, and anything else we set our sights on. Miles that take us back to the people we've missed, and to those who could make this summer mean more than ever before. Get the most out of those miles during the Ram Summer Clearance event.
All right, I brought in Ensure Max Protein to give you the protein you need with less of the sugar you don't. I'll take that.
30 grams of protein and 1 gram of sugar. Ensure Max Protein with nutrients to support immune health.
My psoriatic arthritis pain, I had enough. It's not getting in my way.
Joint pain, swelling, tenderness, much better.
My psoriasis, clearer. Cosentix works on all of this.
4 years and counting.
So watch out.
I got this.
Watch me.
Real people with active psoriatic arthritis are feeling real relief with Cosentyx. Cosentyx is a different kind of targeted biologic. It treats the multiple symptoms of psoriatic arthritis to help you look and feel better. It even helps stop further joint damage. Don't use if you're allergic to Cosentyx. Before starting, get checked for tuberculosis. An increased risk of infections and lowered ability to fight them may occur. Tell your doctor about an infection or symptoms. If your inflammatory bowel disease symptoms develop or worsen, or if you've had a vaccine or plan to, serious allergic reactions may occur.
I just look and feel better.
I got real relief with Cosentyx.
Watch me.
Novartis is committed to supporting our community. Learn more at Cosentyx.com.
Summer. The one season that always leaves us wanting more. And you only have one chance to get it right. Here's yours. Summer On. Receive a credit of up to $3,000 plus 0.9% financing now through August 31st.
Sometimes you want to go where everybody knows your name. And they're always glad you came. You want to be where you can see our troubles are all the same. You want to be where everybody knows your name.
Applebee's. All your favorite burgers, all just $8.99. Now that's eating good in the neighborhood.
This is real.
When your cameras roll, our experts react.
Jaw-dropping.
Weather Gone Viral premieres next Sunday at 9 here on the Weather Channel.
Currently in our area, 79 degrees under mostly cloudy skies. Tonight, cloudy intervals. A stray shower or thunderstorm is possible. Low 76. Winds light and variable. Monday, partly cloudy with an afternoon shower or thunderstorm. High 91. Chance of rain 50%. Monday night, partly cloudy. Low 77. Winds west-southwest at 10 to 15 miles per hour. Here's our 7-day outlook.
Hurricane season doesn't stop for a pandemic, and neither do we.
Be ready for impacts well beyond the center of the hurricane.
Don't let COVID-19 take your eye off the tropics. This year's threat is more complex and dangerous than ever before.
Remain vigilant, pay close attention to the Weather Channel.
No one can cover this historic hurricane season better than the Weather Channel. Get the information you need to stay safe every day. Storm safety in a pandemic, all season long, right here on the Weather Channel.
New video in right now out of Waveland, Mississippi. Ahead of Marco, the waves there being kicked up. Also, some squalls pushing through, bringing torrential downpours at times. And along the Louisiana coast tonight, traffic heavy with people getting out of the way of these two tropical threats. This video from Grand Isle, Louisiana. Others there spending the day boarding up. Earlier, we talked with one man who's been filling up sandbags. His advice for everyone after surviving Hurricane Katrina.
Filling up sandbags to help me and my neighbors out to make sure the water gets in our garages or in our houses and things like that. Just trying to prevent any damages to our homes. Just that wind and the water, if we'll be able to hit the pumps or be able to take, pump the water out fast enough and get it, taken care of so we won't get flooded. That's our main concern. Katrina was a lot of water, extremely a lot of water. I don't want to relive Katrina again. That's one thing I do not want to have to deal with again. Katrina was devastating. Evacuate. When they say evacuate, that means leave. That's what that means. Prepare, get everything together, water, provisions, and leave when they say leave.
Well, here's what we know right now. The Red Cross is mobilizing teams for both Marco and Laura. Governor Greg Abbott has declared a state of emergency for 23 Texas counties. Louisiana Governor John Bel Edwards tells residents to expect a, quote, left hook from Marco and a right hook from Laura. And we go now to our hurricane expert, Dr. Rick Knabb. And Dr. Knabb, it does look at this point like Laura is going to be the bigger threat of the two, but we can't discount Marco either.
No, and that brings forth so many complications. And I want to talk to those of you who are in the path, the potential path of Laura. And I want to urge you to do a couple of things. Number one is to not assume that Laura will be as weak as Marco. Now, Marco is a strong tropical storm. It has life-threatening aspects that are still ongoing, but Laura is likely to be larger, stronger, and affect a lot more people with much more of a broad area of life-threatening wind and water. So don't discount Laura because maybe you catch a break from Marco. And also, I don't want you to let the weather of Marco distract you or keep you from preparing sufficiently for Laura. So let's talk this through. Right now, a tropical storm is what Laura is over eastern Cuba, but it has every indication that it is going to strengthen, maybe even to a hurricane before it gets to the Gulf of Mexico if it spends enough time over the waters south of Cuba. But it's almost a certainty that it becomes a strong hurricane over the Gulf and maybe even stronger than what is exactly forecast here. And get to a major hurricane, which would be at 115 miles an hour. So we've got to prepare for that possibility, but realize that despite the fact that Laura poses a greater danger and maybe we'll have a larger number of people told to evacuate, a number of you having to take more stringent precautions, that we're going to be hindered possibly by Marco. Now, here's the timing for Laura's winds. It could be southeast Louisiana where the winds of tropical storm force start arriving on Wednesday morning. It could be later in the day, in the afternoon in southeast Texas when those winds start arriving. So without Marco in the mix, we would have Monday and Tuesday and maybe part of Wednesday to get ready for Laura. But Monday and Tuesday, we're going to have some bad weather associated with Marco starting tomorrow morning with tropical storm conditions, perhaps in southeast Louisiana, portions of Mississippi, later in the day in central Louisiana. And so you're not going to want to be out on the roads getting supplies for Laura, preparing for Laura when you've got tropical storm conditions going on. So we got to let that get through, so stay safe from that. So when could the winds and the weather of Marco start to subside so we can get ready for Laura, right? Well, as we get through Monday, then into Tuesday morning, we'll still have some residual wind from weakening Marco, but that looks like the best time during the day Tuesday, especially early in the day when the winds should be at their minimum before an expanding, strengthening Laura starts to fill in the Gulf of Mexico and winds start to get gusty again in southeast Louisiana by Tuesday afternoon or evening. And then by Wednesday, things are going downhill. So Tuesday is that critical day when we have the time to prepare. The problem with Tuesday is if some of the models are right, it might at least be raining in coastal areas of Louisiana and Texas and Mississippi and Alabama. So the bottom line here is with serious hindrances on Monday and maybe some additional hindrances on Tuesday, preparing for Laura because of Marco, that it's so critical that whatever opportunity you have when the weather is good enough, especially Tuesday, and whenever you get an evacuation instruction, you have to take action on those immediately. Don't waste any time because the threat from Laura I fear is going to be very significant. The waters in the Gulf of Mexico are much warmer than average. Marco is not cooling off the waters there very much. And look at what the atmosphere is going to be doing. Here is the weak wind shear over the Gulf of Mexico with a strengthening Laura on Tuesday, our prep day, and then Wednesday, we could have a major hurricane impacting the Gulf Coast. So we've got Marco to deal with tonight and especially tomorrow. Prep day is Tuesday for what could be a bigger and badder Laura.
Ta-da! Did you know Liberty Mutual customizes your car insurance so you only pay for what you need?
I should get a quote.
Do it.
Only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
When you've got auto glass damage, Safe Light can come to you.
And you'll get a text when we're on our way.
Just leave your keys on the dash, and we'll replace your windshield with safe, no-contact service.
Schedule at safelight.com.
Safe Light Repair, Safe Light Replace. Who are you? I'm your daydream. Come.
What a day for a daydream. What a day for a daydream.
You're never too far from the Life Artois.
With Domino's $5.99 mix and match deal, you can feed a family of 4 for about $3 per person. So we asked one of our families to help us make this commercial about that deal.
Enjoy your pizza.
Safely feed a family of 4 for about $3 per person with the $5.99 mix and match deal.
A lot of the healthy foods that our patients eat and drink are very acidic and aren't necessarily great for your teeth. When patients eat or drink acidic foods, they're actually pulling out the minerals from the enamel, which over time can cause sensitivity, and a lot of people start to see their teeth turn yellow. Using Pronamel will help push the minerals back into the enamel, keeping it nice and strong. I recommend patients use Pronamel whenever they brush their teeth. Pronamel should be their everyday toothpaste. They're doing a good job taking care of their bodies. I want to help them do a good job taking care of their teeth.
Introducing the ingenious new Upwalker Lite, the safer, more comfortable way to get you up on your feet. From the makers of the award-winning original Upwalker, the Upwalker Lite is now 34% lighter, much easier to maneuver, and features a new lower price.
The Upwalker is revolutionary. A walker has the patient in the hunched over position, whereas when you have the Upwalker, you're able to walk upright because your balance is there.
It takes a lot of pressure off my back and my knees and my ankles. There's a lot less pain, so it makes me want to get out.
My Upwalker Lite allows me to shop, to go to dinner, to see my grandkids. I have freedom again.
Just call or visit upwalkerlite.com. We have new low prices and affordable easy payment plans. The Upwalker Lite comes fully assembled, features adjustable arms, and is now 34% lighter. The Upwalker Lite is easy to turn, so it's perfect for navigating tight spaces indoors and still enjoying more independence outdoors. A clinical study found users of the Upwalker felt safer and more secure, could walk with less pain, and had improved upright posture, resulting in better stamina.
What I hated about my rollator was I was always looking down, but with my Upwalker Lite, I look ahead when I walk, and I feel like I want to go out now.
Call now and get free shipping, plus a free beverage holder, a free backrest, and a free carrying bag. Your Upwalker Lite comes backed by a 30-day money-back guarantee.
With the Upwalker Lite, my kids can sleep at night because I am secure.
Visit upwalkerlite.com or call 800-416-9136. Learn about our easy payment plans. Call 800-416-9136 right now.
Whether holding down the fort or bouncing back to school, childhood is always in session. So keep feeding us right with Sun-Made snacks. Just like when you were a kid. Delicious, made with whole fruit. Sun-Made.
A historic dual tropical threat for those in the Gulf Coast. Two different systems that we have been watching, both Laura and Marco, moving towards the Gulf Coast within the next 72 hours. And really, landfall for both could be within a day and a half of each other. New Orleans getting in on those impacts and that preparation. That's where we find meteorologist Chris Bruin tonight.
A calm and even comfortable August night here in New Orleans, and you even have clear skies. Look at the crescent moon, very fitting, being over the Crescent City Connection. That's the famous bridge here that crosses over the Mississippi River from the West Bank over into the Central Business District. Really incredible scene if you haven't been here. But not only keeping eyes on the Mississippi River, but we've got a lot of water here. And when you have tropical threats like Marco and Laura, this is a city that is vulnerable. So storm surge warnings are in effect, especially for the coastal regions in southeastern Louisiana. We are under a tropical storm warning. Let's talk about timing and impacts, and we'll start with Marco because we have a little bit more certainty. Also, that's the one that's hitting on Monday, okay? So when you wake up in the morning, it's going to be much more cloudy than what we've been seeing on Sunday. You're going to notice more winds, and winds will be increasing along with squally weather. I think it'll be intermittent the first half of the day and become more widespread and persistent persistent after lunchtime. So the afternoon is really going to be go time here, I think, all across Lake Pontchartrain and really the New Orleans metro area, where we could have wind gusts anywhere from 40 upwards of 50, even 60 plus miles per hour. You're talking down trees potentially, power outages. After July being so wet, the grounds are saturated. That causes the root system to be more vulnerable to falling over. So that's something we're going to be watching. And hopefully you've made preparations in advance, not only for Marco, but for Laura. We still don't know quite what the exact impacts will be here in New Orleans, but we know there will be some. And the concern is there's not going to be a lot of wiggle room in between. So hopefully you have your preparations in place for really the whole week ahead. And hopefully we end up on the weaker end of things here around New Orleans, really the Gulf Coast as a whole, but only time will tell to see what these threats ultimately pose.
Thank you, Chris. We are watching Marco right now, and it's really feeling the influence of the shear in the environment, the strong winds aloft cutting across the Gulf from southwest to northeast. The center, as of the 10 o'clock Central Time advisory, was right here. I think it's probably right about here now, but that does not put it underneath the thunderstorms at all. The rainfall is well to the north and east, and so that's showing us the disorganized storm and the lack of ability to strengthen those winds at all. And so good news for those of you in, say, Louisiana. There will probably be less of a wind threat, although there's still plenty of tropical moisture, and there is still going to be a severe weather component throughout the day on Monday. So keep that in mind. Might be able to hold on to those 70, maybe even 75 mile per hour winds, then a quick demise going all the way down to near nothing within the next day, which is good because that's about the time that Laura starts coming in. Here's that shear I told you about, strong winds cutting across the Gulf of Mexico. But if this can find a little pocket in here without too much of that wind, it turned into a hurricane very quickly. It has an outside chance of strengthening once again. So that's one thing that we are watching, just in case that does occur. Although right now, no strong winds by any of the buoys in the area. The rain is still increasing across the region, and including the chance for some strong storms, maybe even a water spout right in here. So Dr. Nab, that's something that we are watching as well. Of course, it's only one storm that we are following, and so we want to also follow Laura, as Laura is the next one and will be a much more impactful storm.
Yes, and I want to show you the cone and walk people through ways you can avoid misinterpreting the cone, because there's a lot that it doesn't tell you. Right now, we've got a 65-mile-an-hour tropical storm, almost certain to become a hurricane, maybe even a major hurricane. So this is the track from the Hurricane Center, has at 105 miles an hour, a Cat 2 coming ashore on Wednesday. But here's one thing it doesn't tell you. It could be that it's early Wednesday when winds of tropical storm force start arriving back in the same area where Marco is affecting people tomorrow. So get ready by Tuesday, because Wednesday the weather will be going downhill in the northern Gulf Coast. That cone also doesn't tell you that the center of circulation could end up going outside of that cone. There are still plenty of model tracks west of Houston, east of New Orleans, and everywhere in between. So don't be shocked if that cone moves. Just because you're out of it now doesn't mean you won't be in it later. That cone also doesn't tell you explicitly that some of the models are actually forecasting this to become a major hurricane. I will not be shocked if by tomorrow we have the forecast from the Hurricane Center of this becoming a major hurricane. And finally, that cone doesn't tell you clearly that unlike Marco, Laura is going to be a big inland event for wind and rainfall-induced flooding.
Introducing new Life Cuisine for your lifestyle. High protein, meatless, gluten-free, or low-carb lifestyle. Power up your day with new Life Cuisine. Delicious your way.
All OTC pain relievers, including Voltaren, have one thing in common. None are proven stronger or more effective against pain than Salonpas Patch Large. There's surprising power in this patch. Salonpas. Dependable, powerful relief.
You think you're winning this game? You don't even know the rules.
Tonight.
Right and wrong, good and evil. There's no such thing.
On the season finale.
What I do is for me.
They make war when they want, where they want.
Don't feel much like a Landale, Montana, does it?
Yellowstone season finale, tonight at 9 on Paramount Network. Set your DVR.
Look at that scuffed up wall. I'm staring at you. Embarrassing you in front of your in-laws. Spreading rumors about you at work. That wall is your Everest, but not anymore. Today, let's paint. That wall never knew what hit it. Today, let's paint. Fair. Exclusively at the Home Depot.
Tara, did you know Geico is now offering an extra 15% credit on car and motorcycle policies?
Wow, okay.
That's 15% on top of what Geico could already save you. So what are you waiting for? Adina Menzel to sing your own theme song?
Tara, Tara, look at her go with a fresh cup of joe, getting down to work early, following her dreams into taxidermy.
It's tax attorney.
I read that wrong, oh yeah!
Geico. Save an extra 15% when you switch by October 7th.
Tara!
It's so good to see you guys. Hon, out here.
Are we on yet?
Oh.
I thought we were doing a Zoom thing.
Confused?
No.
Maybe you just need a Snickers.
At SafeFlight, we're committed to taking care of you and your car. We'll fix it right with no contact service you can trust.
So if you have auto glass damage, stay safe with SafeFlight.
SafeFlight Repair, SafeFlight Replace.
Ever notice how stiff clothes can feel rough on your skin? For softer clothes that are gentle on your skin, try Downy Free and Gentle. Downy will soften your clothes without dyes or perfumes. The towel washed with Downy is softer and gentler on your skin. Try Downy Free and Gentle.
Oh, hello. Did you know that Coffee Mate is triple churn and 2 times richer than milk for one perfect cup of coffee? How do I know so much about Coffee Mate? I've had a cup or 200. Coffee Mate. Coffee's perfect mate.
We have everybody stationed and ready to go in Puerto Rico and the Gulf Coast, and we have tremendous people. We have FEMA is lined up, and we have the Coast Guard ready. The Coast Guard has done a fantastic job. They do such good work, and we want to thank our great Coast Guard. I'm asking all Americans in the storm's path to follow the instructions of your state and local governments very closely. And I've approved emergency declarations for Puerto Rico and for Louisiana.
That is President Trump saying the federal government is prepared for the possibility of not 1 but 2 storms hitting the Gulf Coast in less than a couple of days. So we're following both of these. First came through Puerto Rico. Now Laura is organizing near Cuba and entering the Gulf of Mexico. But before Laura gets there, we have Marco, which is now approaching the Gulf Coast states. So it's one after another. You've been through enough of these with us. You know that one tropical system is more than enough to cause flooding. But what happens when 2 show up in such a short time frame? I want to bring in hurricane expert Dr. Rick Knabb. Dr. Knabb, not a guarantee that both storms are going to bring the heaviest rainfall over exactly the same places, but they're close enough for concern for many, and it's going into an area that's been so soggy. The summer surplus is more than a foot for some people here.
Yeah, so there's the combined effects of the water impacts of both of them all on their own, but there's also the hindrances to preparing for Laura that the water of Marco might pose. So let's first talk about just the fact that we have a lot of tropical moisture from 2 systems making its way along the same path. So this Gulf Coast region is going to get rain from both of these systems. So let's combine it all. Let's cut to the chase. Global model depictions over the next 7 days of total rainfall from both Marco and Laura. Now, the European model has Laura farther to the east, but it also has the rainfall of Marco. So with Laura here, that's where the biggest rainfall totals are, but it adds Marco and Laura together for southeast Louisiana. So you end up getting a big footprint for East Louisiana, much of Mississippi, and then north from there along the Mississippi River. Now, the GFS that had earlier been a little bit farther to the west with heavier rainfall in East Texas has shifted a little bit to the right, and these are just 2 of the many model solutions. But you see how track dependent this is, but in any case, GFS has Marco's rainfall footprint in southeast Louisiana, but very separately Laura for much of Louisiana and Arkansas. So it remains to be seen if that you have a lot of overlap. It's possible you will, it's possible you won't. But Marco's rainfall has some hazards all in its own. I mean, over the next day or so, we could have some locally heavy rainfall that could cause flooding problems on the roads. And it's mainly southeast Louisiana that we're worried about. But the more that system gets dragged to the north, the more you bring in coastal Mississippi, Alabama, even Pensacola into the area that could get some locally heavy rainfall. But Mark, I think it's not just the hazards that Marco poses all in its own. And again, those hazards will be less the faster this weakens and hangs a left. But it is going to produce conditions that make it harder, at least a distraction, to prepare for Laura.
Yeah, and friend of the show, Will, was asking me to ask you, what happens when, say, Marco closes some roads and there's water already on the roads? How do people get ready? How do people prepare for what will be the larger of the two storms, the more kind of big deal storm still waiting in the wings?
Well, I think if that is to happen, it's probably going to be localized. Now, if we had higher confidence that Marco was going to flood a lot of communities for an extended period of time, then the emergency managers would take that weather information and they'd be calling evacuations for Laura in advance of Marco. But I think we're going to mostly be dealing with a localized hindrance on Monday, especially, maybe into Tuesday from Marco for Laura preparations. But that doesn't mean it's very fun or the ideal thing. So there may just be areas that emergency managers, responders have to help people out a little extra tomorrow and Tuesday if they do get that localized flooding.
All right, and then there's, it is a 1-2 punch. We're not used to seeing this. And people are used to us talking about storm surge, right? That the water can be pushed in by the wind of these storm systems. Even the disorganized Marco is still going to have a storm surge threat. So, number one, how bad a storm surge threat are we talking? And number two, does it have time to come down before the water rise begins out ahead of Laura?
Yeah, now, to jump ahead just briefly, Laura's storm surge will be significant and life-threatening, probably cause a large number of evacuations all by itself. But to get to your question, does the storm surge of Marco make the surge even worse for Laura? Well, probably not a lot, but maybe a little, because you still have storm surge warning level saltwater flooding that Marco could cause over the next day or so. And that onshore flow will not just disappear between Marco and Laura, because once Laura gets into the Gulf on Tuesday, then it has some some east to west flow on its northern side. So this flooding is not going to completely drain. So it might raise Laura's storm surge values by a little bit. But I think the bigger problem, Mark, is that in addition to the rain-induced flooding that could cause localized problems on roads, you could have some localized saltwater flooding problems tomorrow and into early Tuesday that just delay or hinder preparations for Laura. Yeah. So that's the biggest problem, is it just gets in the way of Laura preparations that would probably ramp up tomorrow and be in full gear on Tuesday, but might have to wait a little bit on Monday. Tomorrow is when hurricane watches could go up for Laura for this same area. Boy, you don't have to deal with that double dip very often.
Yeah, and so Louisiana, Mississippi, two of the most surge vulnerable coastlines. If we were to have a major hurricane of Laura approaching, how high is this surge going to be forecast to be?
Well, it could be several feet higher. Yeah. And also, New Orleans, you're not in the storm surge warning this time. But if you get a major hurricane coming directly at you, it could be different with Laura.
So we are staying with you live through the night right here on the Weather Channel as we track this rare double threat.
When you've got auto glass damage, Safe Flight can come to you.
And you'll get a text when we're on our way. Just leave your keys on the dash, and we'll replace your windshield with safe, no-contact service.
Schedule at safelight.com.
Safe Light Repair, Safe Light Replace.
No! Wrong move! Old-fashioned bandages get dirty. They can let in water and germs. Look, it's falling off! New Skin is the flexible liquid bandage that seals out the bad stuff. There's a spray, too!
New Skin. Rethink how you heal.
If you just want a slice of pizza, you don't buy the whole pie. So if you don't use your cell phone that much, why pay for more than you need? For as low as $20 a month, you can get talk, text, and data from Consumer Cellular with no contract and connections on the nation's largest wireless networks. You'll also receive award-winning support. Consumer Cellular has received the J.D. Power Award for highest customer service again. Plus, AARP members get exclusive discounts. Switch today and get your first month of service free. Call, go online, or find us at Target.
At Physicians Mutual, we know that planning for retirement can feel scary.
I see you're about to turn 65.
You know what that means. Medicare.
It doesn't cover dental. What high bills you'll have.
Actually, we're getting a Physicians Mutual.
Oh, great. She'll be covered.
Retire with confidence. We'll listen and find you the coverage you need.
Physicians Mutual, Physicians Mutual.
Tide Power Pods one-up the cleaning power of liquid.
Can it one-up spaghetti night?
It sure can.
Really?
Can it one-up breakfast in bed?
Yeah, for sure.
Thanks, boys. What about that?
Yep.
It can?
Yeah, even that.
I would very much like to see that.
Me too.
Introducing Tide Power Pods. One up the toughest stains with 50% more cleaning power than liquid detergent. Any further questions?
Nope.
One up the power of liquid with Tide Power Pods.
Spectrum Mobile is now the fastest growing mobile provider in the nation, growing faster than Verizon and AT&T, and even growing faster than T-Mobile. It's easy to see why. Spectrum delivers the fastest overall speeds and is the most reliable mobile service coast to coast. There are no contracts, added taxes, or fees. Switch and you could save up to 40% and see why Spectrum Mobile is the fastest growing mobile provider. Learn more at spectrummobile.com.
Mama. Why do I keep falling asleep during the day? What's making me so tired? I kept asking myself these questions. It felt like I was more than tired. Then I was diagnosed with narcolepsy. There are 5 major symptoms. I waited too long to take action, but you don't have to. Visit morethantired.com now. Take the narcolepsy symptom screener and find a sleep specialist to share your results. Don't wait. Visit morethantired.com today.
Unbelievable, this is real.
When your cameras roll, our experts react.
Jaw-dropping.
Weather Gone Viral premieres next Sunday at 9 here on the Weather Channel.
Currently in our area, 79 degrees under partly cloudy skies. Tonight, cloudy intervals. A stray shower or thunderstorm is possible. Low 76. Winds light and variable. Monday, partly cloudy with an afternoon shower or thunderstorm. High 91. Chance of rain 50%. Monday night, partly cloudy. Low 77. Winds west-southwest at 10 to 15 miles per hour. Here's our 7-day outlook.
Here in Key West, we're awaiting the tropical squalls from Tropical Storm Laura. It will make its closest approach tomorrow afternoon and tomorrow evening. It's going to move due south of us about midday and then off to the south and west into the Gulf of Mexico later tomorrow night and Tuesday. It's going to be a couple hundred miles away, so we're not expecting tropical storm force winds. That's 39 miles an hour or higher, and that's why the National Hurricane Center did not upgrade the tropical storm watch to a warning at 5 p.m. Eastern. In fact, they dropped the watch from Craig Key north. The upper Keys, Key Largo, no longer under a watch. But here in the middle and lower Keys, we are going to get some gusty winds and some tropical squalls. They'll be coming in from the periphery, the far outer rain bands of Laura, and that could bring in maybe half an inch to an inch of rain. We're not going to get the kind of rainfall totals we've seen in Hispaniola and over in Cuba tonight. Some spots in the Dominican Republic have picked up 10 inches of rain because we're so far from the center of Laura. The other thing we're concerned with, we do have a coastal flood watch. The south side of the Keys, the wind direction coming this way, that'll push some of the water up. So at high tide between now and late Monday night and Tuesday morning, we could see the water up about 1 to 2 feet higher. It's already a little higher than average. So the bottom line, basically, I'll describe it as a bad beach day here in the Keys on Monday. Tuesday, the sun is back out, still windy, and then we're back to more typical tropical weather for the rest of the week. So they dodged Isaias. didn't get a raindrop. Tomorrow they get brushed by with Tropical Storm Laura, but we've got a long way to go in the Keys. They well know that this season can go into October and even early November.
Thank you, Mike. Let's give you a quick update now on both Tropical Storm Marco and Tropical Storm Laura. Laura will probably be the more impactful of the two, but there will be impacts from Marco as well. Disorganized, kind of disheveled, blown over appearance to Tropical Storm Marco. The center is down here, the storms are over here, and really a lot of the action is out here with some water spout potential coming towards the Florida Panhandle. So keep that in mind. 70-mile-per-hour top wind speed may even be generous. The hurricane hunters in this area haven't found anything like that in the past couple of hours. Now, the forecast still keeps that wind kind of steady state through and into the approach through the day tomorrow towards southeast Louisiana, then tangles with those strong winds aloft, and we lose a lot of that wind in a big, big way. How about our other storm? This is Laura. Laura is still a little bit disorganized because of being so near to Cuba and some of the mountainous terrain there. But even with that, the wind speeds have increased to near 65 miles per hour. The rainfall intense over Jamaica and has been for hours. I think that might steal the headlines in the short term, how much rain they get in Jamaica. Hopefully by morning we're not hearing about just all kinds of destruction and flash flooding and mudslides and debris flows across Jamaica. But that is the fear. There is just way too much water right now falling because of Laura. 65-mile-per-hour winds, but forecast to get much stronger than that. We could have a hurricane as early as tomorrow as it kind of exits Cuba. After that, low shear, high amounts of heat content in the Gulf, major hurricane status, not off the table. So keep that in mind. This could be a real kind of threatening situation for the Gulf Coast states. There are not one, but two storms. Again, this map does not get any more 2020 than this, with Marco and Laura both needing to be different colors, or else we wouldn't be able to show you both forecast tracks from the National Hurricane Center because they're that overlapped in just about a day and a half time. So let's bring in Dr. Rick Knabb again, a real threat here, a rare dual threat that's going to complicate things when it comes to preparing. Marco could slow things down as people really need to be ready for Laura.
Yeah, because the significance of the threat from Laura is such that tomorrow would be one of the big first prep days for Laura, but we have Marco that's going to be affecting us tomorrow. So that is definitely not good news, with tropical storm conditions perhaps affecting southeast Louisiana and the surrounding area starting tomorrow morning and lasting into the day and evening. We got to hope that the shear takes care of Marco sooner rather than later to lessen the impacts. Now, even with a weakening Marco, the global models pick up on continued breezy conditions along the coast of Louisiana into Tuesday morning as Laura is strengthening and the wind field is expanding, and as the day goes on Tuesday, it will get breezier in the northern Gulf Coast area. So we just got that Tuesday window of opportunity that looks like our best chance to get our core preparations for Laura done before really gets bad on Wednesdays. Could be as early as Wednesday morning when the tropical storm conditions start arriving in southeast Louisiana, and then later in the day farther to the north and west. Now, I wanted to bring up the track and intensity forecast for this again and reiterate the distinct possibility that this becomes a major hurricane. Now, might you be thinking, well, it's a tropical storm here. How would it possibly have time to become a major hurricane in 3 days? Well, let me remind you that Katrina was a tropical storm just before it got to the east coast of Florida, and it was less than 2 days later that it was a Category 3 hurricane over the Gulf of Mexico, and only one more day after that it reached Cat 5. Mark, I'm not saying that's going to happen this time, but it certainly is within the realm of possibility for this to become a major hurricane in the next couple of days.
Yeah, and gosh, the Gulf of Mexico is infamous for that, so that is something that we will be watching, and our live team coverage will be continuing right after this.
At Safe